Right on zero, perfectly in sync. Also, that's Courtney's favorite band.
Stop talking about yourself.
Nah.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide. I am your host, Matt, and welcome, as I've already said. Tonight, we are talking about a regiment that did some amazing things here during the Battle of Gettysburg, and yet they're often overshadowed by the 20th Maine. But I believe it was our friend Tim Smith who once said that when he was coming up, it was the 1st Minnesota that everybody wanted to hear about and everybody wanted to see about and all that. And then Joshua Chamberlain and 20th Maine were kind of like, oh, yeah, I think there was somebody with those names in that regiment somewhere down there. But 1st Minnesota, that's it. And so joining us here tonight, we have the one and only Ralph Siegel. Hello, Ralph. How are you?
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Tad.
I just talked to the governor.
There we go. Why didn't you just talk to the governor?
Yes.
He's imitating me. It's not even really funny.
Ken Gavin loves this.
He talked to the governor.
Yeah, what?
Talked to her staff.
Oh,
her bodyguards.
That's right.
Yes,
Yes,
me out of the freaking building.
Governor who?
That was
Whitman.
Whitman.
Yeah.
Who?
You threw him off now.
Yeah.
Ralph, you threw him off. He's intimidated.
Yeah, I was going to say he's self-conscious.
He was very excited to do.
Nice to know somebody listened to that episode. So there we go.
Anyway, no, but seriously, the real Ralph Siegel is right over here, ladies and gentlemen. There he is. You saw him early on as well. So, Ralph, you are joined by Court. That's not you over there. That's Court Micker. There he is. Now we know who it is. Court Micker, and of course in the back we have the great Tad, and a new addition to the Addressing Gettysburg team, Stephen Taft. Wave to everybody, Stephen. How you doing? There's Stephen Taft, and he's going to be coming on and helping me get washboard abs, I think is what we're going to do. And then, of course, Court's dad is back there. Roger, how you doing? Welcome. Bienvenidos.
That's really your dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so we got to be careful what we say.
Yeah, don't go bash. You should really compliment his impression of you now.
Forget about the money he owes.
It's hilarious.
Let's move on from that.
Yeah. Pull the mic a little closer to your mouth there, Ralph. Mm-hmm. All right, so we're talking about the 1st Minnesota.
Hey,
and as you know...
You forgot about Ken. Ken's back here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken. I'm sorry. You were blocked.
No, I thought
Ken Wyman back there. You were blocked by Steven. Steven's fat ass was in your way. All right, so we're talking about the 1st Minnesota, and I want to tell you something first. And that is that you want to make sure that you get to the end when we read the questions from our patrons, because one of them tried to quiz us, mainly Ralph, but gave the answer in the question. And of course, we share the questions with the guides ahead of time. And so I said, well, you know what we'll do? We'll ask the question, and the first person who calls and gets 2 out of the 3 names correct will get 2 free tickets to our show at the Totem Pole this Sunday. These are a hot commodity around here, ladies and gentlemen. We're virtually sold out. And by virtually, I mean we got a ways to go. But we're doing much better than I thought we would do, actually. But still.
5 instead of 3 people.
So that's right. And so we're going to give away tickets. And if you can't make it to the show on Sunday, then you can transfer them to whoever you'd like in the audience who can make it. So there you go. So there's that. If you want to just order, it's also the show is brought to you by our show that's coming up here at the Totem Pole. So the link is in the description, and it's also in the comment section. And just look at all the excitement that's coming here. Look at this. Look at this beautiful webpage. They've got the wonderful, handsome man there. Mm-hmm. And there's all this description that you can read. And then eventually you can go and you can get tickets by clicking the proper link. So I suggest you do that. Also, this show is also brought to you in part by our buddies over at Antica Napoli. Ladies and gentlemen, Antica Napoli, once again, delicious pizza for delicious people. And they really are great. And if you're a pizza snob like I am, coming from New Jersey, Ralph, you're from Jersey.
Huge pizza snob.
Right.
Don't even start.
And this is like our thing, right? Steven, you're from Philly. You got some good pizza out by Philly. That corridor between Philadelphia and New York, no, it's better than the rest of the country.
You can always go to Baltimore. Good grief.
I wouldn't even try.
Oh, man.
I wouldn't go to Baltimore for any reason.
What about Wilmington?
It's a lovely town, but they don't know what pizza is.
Wilmington, Delaware? Or
Yeah, is that good for pizza?
No. It's
Really? You say it like you know it.
I had a friend who lived in Wilmington, and we went and got pizza there, and I was like, this is horrendous.
How close is Wilmington to Philadelphia? Is it close?
It's pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's not, it is and it isn't. You know, as far as pizza goes, miles away. Anyway, we don't want to upset the people who are going to watch this and want to get right to the first Minnesota, and then they go in the comment section and go, they get to the history at 15 minutes and 7 seconds.
Yeah, I know,
and then I delete the comment.
That's what I do too when I'm listening to you in the car.
I know. We're recommending this book here, ladies and gentlemen, and it is called The Last Full Measure, The Life and Death of the First Minnesota Volunteers by Richard Moe. Hey, Moe! It is, there you go. And is that him?
That is him.
That is Richard Moe. Why do you have a picture, a nice glossy of him?
Because I have a story.
Well, tell the story, Ralph.
Are we going to start that now?
I'm sick of hearing me. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you discussed my biography to my embarrassment. We discussed it in my first
What, that you're from New Jersey? Oh.
And that I worked in the newspapers.
Yes. Yes, you did.
Second part of the story is in 2002, I left after 25 years in the newspaper business and went to work for the government. Recruited by the treasurer because he was sick of me writing nasty stories about how screwed up the budget was. So I went to work in the Treasury Department to screw the budget up even further.
Okay.
And I ended up actually in a nice line of work running an agency that funded land conservation, like acquisitions. We actually partnered with the Battlefield Trust on several projects, so that was neat. But before all of that, I was hired by the treasurer, but directly for Governor Jim McGreevey. I was on his, massive staff.
So was that guy.
Let's limit the details.
Sorry.
This was several years before what we affectionately called Cinderella Day.
Okay.
I'm a gay American. That's not part of the story.
Right,
okay?
right. I remember when
and he was actually very fond of history. And his mansion, Drumthwacket, actually is...
What's it called?
Drumthwacket.
That's what I thought you said.
Drumthwacket.
That's the governor's mansion?
Yes.
Or was that his?
No, it's the governor's official governor's mansion.
I never knew that.
It means house in the woods.
Okay.
And it's adjacent to the Princeton battlefield.
All right.
In fact, British troops crossed the property where Drumthwacket is today to attack the Americans in the Princeton battlefield. So he's very into the Battle of Princeton and all that and yada, yada, yada. So he's having a event at his house, that Drumthwacket. And the chief of staff of Treasury said, we have to send somebody. Everyone knows you're a history geek. This is actually, I jumped a little ahead because this is already 2006. So I've been on the payroll for 4 years. So I already had a different job. But nevertheless, they reached out to me to attend an event at Drumthwacket with, which is really nice, really. The catering and everything is just all wooden carved, beautiful place, with a bunch of historians. Mm-hmm. The New Jersey Historic Trust, 15 members, a lot of them have deep pockets, and a bunch of guests are coming. And the executive director of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which we had a financial relationship with, is going to be one of the guests. And some other people from Washington says, roll that back. The Trust for Historic Preservation, Richard Moe. Oh, you know this guy? Oh, my God. Okay. And here's his picture again.
Okay, there's his picture. He looks familiar.
He wrote this book.
And you have that book quite marked. Lots of things to pay attention to there.
Richard Moe was Walter Mondale's chief of staff when he was a senator.
All right.
Became his chief of staff when he was vice president. A little bit of a falling out because when Mondale decided to run for president, he overlooked Richard Moe and hired someone else as his campaign chairman. Richard Moe just became a Washington lawyer and lobbyist and said that was a great disappointment to him because him and Walter Mondale were close friends, but he wanted someone else to run the national campaign, which, of course, he got murdered, which all the newspapers said, yes, because you didn't hire Richard Moe, but
Was it Geraldine Ferraro? Who was his?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But
running mate.
The only state he won was Minnesota.
Right.
Ronald Reagan won 49 states.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Not his year.
That is, yeah. And so in 1989, Richard Moe becomes the director of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which was a federally funded agency. And within 6 or 7 years, he had them completely off federal funds and had an endowment of $30 million. The guy was a remarkable fundraiser and a real true believer. He had been researching the first Minnesota since his time as Mondale's Senate staffer. In fact, there was a joke that he said, we're overdue for a trip back to Minnesota, which is, going from Washington to Minnesota is like an 18-hour plane trip. It's like it's north of Canada or whatever.
Right.
And I think we got to go home for this weekend. He would like set up constituent meetings for Mondale with like a Boy Scout pack. Because he wanted to get into the state archive because he was researching the first Minnesota. And he writes this landmark book, and he's invited to Drumthwacket, where the governor is having all these guys, and I'm there, and I walk up and I shake hands, and I said, Mr. Moe, great to meet you, and I introduced myself, and I said, I'm a newly minted licensed battlefield guide at Gettysburg. He lit up.
Mm-hmm.
We found a side room where the reception was not, closed the door, and sat there for half an hour talking about the first Minnesota and his book. People are running around like, did he leave? What happened to Moe? The governor wants to talk to him. And it was like, lucky I didn't get fired. And then we eventually slipped back, and he was just very excited, wrote me letters, emails afterward. And I developed the first Minnesota tour with emails. But he passed away just last September.
Oh, all right.
So
this is
this
is in honor of him.
It is it is my link to the historians and Richard Moe. What a wonderful guy, soft spoken but very, very skilled.
Good.
And his book is I'd have to ask Charlie Fennell and a few other people who have expertise in the first Minnesota, but I think it's widely accepted that this is the book on the regiment.
Okay.
There are a bunch of other books that came out because that's Gettysburg. There's this book rolling out every 3 weeks on Little Round Top, a new look.
Right. Right.
Little Round Top from the rear.
Right. Little round Top from the bottom.
Little Round Top, the beaver perspective. And I don't think there's a lot of challenge. That Last Full Measure is a landmark book.
Yeah. People are noticing that you are sporting the Team Beaver shirt.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ralph is apparently on the losing team yet again.
I didn't know that when I bought the shirt.
I knew it when you bought it.
I'm just not going to walk around wearing a shirt that says Mozart. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I knew it was a matter of time.
Guy. But
it was a matter of time.
Beavers are walking around there at the base of Little Round Top. What?
Yeah. Hey, what happened?
What the hell?
Yeah. They're and then
what'd you do to the dam? I didn't do anything. You did. That guy or that human did it.
They did the controlled burn today, didn't they?
Yeah, it's starting today and
it's
tomorrow.
It's starting today.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're poor beeves. Poor beeves.
Oh, that won't bother them.
Oh my God, they're going to be choked out. What are you talking about?
They're not stupid. They're beavers.
Oh. I wouldn't want to take a college course taught by a beaver. Put it that way.
At Beaver College.
Good point.
At Beaver College. Thank you, Court.
Okay, also a good point. So.
Yeah.
Court is going to be monitoring the comments. And if you get out of line, he's going to say something to you. No, Court's going to be monitoring the comments. Of course, super chats, rise above the din, $10 or more will be read. If you do $10 or less, we appreciate them, but we got to stick with our rule. $10 or more is going to be read on the air. It is noticeable because it's nice, bright, and yellow. And so we are going to do all of that. All right, the first Minnesota.
I flopped through as best as I could, imperfectly, your 4 or 5 year track record of podcasts focusing on regiments.
Okay. Okay.
And you never had one on the 1st Minnesota.
No, and
It's like you've been circling the
well,
800-pound gorilla.
I will tell you, years ago, Tim Smith said he wanted to come back on and do a 1st Minnesota. And every time
Cool.
I see Tim,
Yeah.
every time I see Tim, I'm like, hey, Tim, come on, when are you coming back? Everybody's always asking me, when are you coming back? And he just kind of looks at me and goes,
Cool.
Too
and I
late.
go, well, when are you going to,
Too
when are you
late.
coming back? We could do the 1st Minnesota. And I don't think
It eclipses every regiment that's here.
it
We
is.
talk about the 19th, 20th Massachusetts. We talk about that regiment up on Little Round Top, name escapes me, with Jeff Daniels. We talk about all these things, and everybody dances around the 1st Minnesota. And I'll tell you why I'm saying these things, because I've been a guide now for more than 20 years. Talked to other guides about it. It's hard to explain the Civil War soldier.
Okay.
It's some respects hard to explain the American soldier.
Mm-hmm.
But at least by the time these guys are running across Omaha Beach, they have cohesive modern training done by professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, more modern weaponry and developed tactics. In the Civil War, these guys know almost nothing.
Yeah.
They learn what they're learning on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of guides might say this. I'll say it, that I was smarter 22 years ago than I am now, because I don't know how to describe that man standing on that ridge, looking down the slope at a force 4 or 5 times their number, and he's going to charge.
In other words, you're saying you would have tried to answer that question when you were
I don't
younger,
know how to
but now
describe that guy.
have you done it?
Courage is not a word. Insanity. I mean, but they're not insane.
No, I can't either. And
They're gripped with fear. Anyone who says they're not gripped with fear is just has no. They overcome their fear.
yeah, right,
And they overcome their fear because it's they, not him.
right.
So the guy next to him. That's why they're at that close rank, so they can lift their elbow and touch the guy that's next to them. Nevertheless, that attack of this regiment, storming down that slope, it's they were ordered forward. They had nothing on their flanks when they attacked. Lieutenant William Loughran, who becomes one of the great scribes of the 1st Minnesota. Every man realized in an instant that order meant death or wounds to us all. The sacrifice of the regiment to gain a few minutes' time and save the position. I'm going to die to save a position. Yeah. Death and wounds to us all. And with the wounds you get in the Civil War, man, you'd probably just rather be dead.
Yeah. Let me just stop you there, because I'm thinking of the person who's watching this who is not inside baseball with us. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so give us some elementary stuff.
We're going to get there.
Okay, you're going to do that.
You're
giving the preview.
Drama.
All right, good. I'm sorry, Ralph. I frigged up the whole thing for you, and I'm very sorry.
Patrick Henry Taylor. Let's show this most famous Civil War picture. It's on the cover of the book. But we have the picture, too, and I think I emailed it. You can put it in. There they are, the Taylor brothers, Isaac and Patrick Henry. Went by Henry. He's a sergeant in Company E. Company E went in with 38 men, including 2 commissioned officers, 3 sergeants, 6 corporals, and 27 privates. After the charge, we were 1 sergeant, him, 1 corporal, and 5 men. How much changed in 15 minutes. I was now in command of the whole company. I have a nice picture here. That you can show.
Sorry, real quick.
Got it there.
Tad, if you want to go back over here just so you can see, these are the Taylor brothers.
This is the composite picture. I use this when I do PowerPoint shows about the 1st Minnesota. So these are nice pictures of, I'm handing it to you there, Matt.
Oh, I got it here.
These are nice pictures of Civil War soldiers, a nice variety. And then I'll get people's attention when I say that every single one of the men you see in this picture was killed.
in this action, right?
In the 1st Minnesota.
Yeah.
1 regiment, all killed on July 2nd. And they have this collection of photos. Now, one of the great things about doing 1st Minnesota work is it's so well documented. The 1st Minnesota, the Minnesota Historical Society and the 1st Minnesota Regiment Association have, hands down, the best website I've ever seen, including photos of more than 50% of the men in the regiment. It makes the research a lot easier. Richard Moe, of course, didn't have that resource. He actually helped to build that resource. Because this regiment becomes so famous.
It's sad to look into their faces, and some of these guys you can see are, I mean, they could be my kids.
Yeah.
They're young enough to be that.
Now, you
unlucky.
mentioned the great attention that the 20th Maine has gotten since Michael Shara's novel and the stuff that grew out of that. That's completely understandable that Michael Shara, as a writer, would concentrate on the 20th Maine because the documentation is so great. They've got a great writer who wrote books, and this is what he can, that's a great source for him to tap into.
Right.
And so it's understandable that the 20th Maine becomes the focus of the Killer Angels.
Yeah, and can I just say about that is I'm not one of these people that feels like you have to bash the 20th Maine and Chamberlain.
Oh, yeah.
Like
but they did.
But there's people now that are like so sick of hearing about them that they almost downplay what they did. I'm just saying let's just broaden the shot a bit and see that, they are one regiment in a brigade that all fought hard to protect that hill. Yes, he was on the flank.
Yeah. All did more than every single one of us.
Yeah. And
that all did more than every single one of us.
And then you hear people, I've heard it, I can't stand the 20th Maine, and I just, let's walk over and stand next to that monument. You read the names on the side and say that again.
Yeah.
Asshole.
No, that's not what I meant. I just meant.
Yes, they get a lot of publicity, and so that naturally makes people hate, like the New York Yankees and, the Chicago Bulls. Well, not anymore. And, they get a lot of publicity. People, it's a natural thing. But
it's like
before Shara writing his novel, dating back to the 1920s when Tim Smith became a guide, and going back into the 1880s, the 1st Minnesota was the attention getter.
Right.
The state memorial for Minnesota, which can be interpreted to be a regimental monument, even though it's a state memorial because there's only one regiment here from it, is the largest regimental monument on the battlefield. And in terms of artwork, one could say the highest level.
Court once said that the 1st Minnesota is the winning regiment in the Army of the Potomac, and the 20th Maine is the participation trophy recipient.
That's a little strong.
Yeah.
That seems like me.
Yeah. Well, get out.
That seems like me.
Get out.
Like Nate Bargatze said, out of the boat. In that Washington skit there. Get out of the boat.
Yeah.
What happens is in 1889, William Fox publishes Regimental Losses in the American Civil War. And the key to that book, which is like hundreds of pages, is this chart that he develops showing proportionate losses killed and wounded in a single engagement.
Okay.
This is his whole chart.
Look at that. A lot of writing.
Hey, for those of you who have this book, page 36, you can get it for free. You can download it from Hathi Trust and Internet Archive. If you actually have a copy, this is probably worth hundreds of dollars, so don't open it. Page 36 lists regiments with the heaviest losses of numbered engaged, killed, wounded, and missing, and the very top of the list is the 1st Minnesota. So now, all of a sudden, this comes out in 1889. There's a great appetite for Civil War literature at that time. Century Magazine, all these articles and books coming out. And so that attracted a lot of attention to the 1st Minnesota. And it would drive their effort in the next 8 years to put up the memorial that we have at Gettysburg, as well as a regimental monument. The Minnesota had no representation outside the cemetery. Now, the Minnesota actually has the oldest monument in the park because they don't know there's going to be a park. Mm-hmm. So they put up the urn that sits in the first Minnesota grave plot in the National Cemetery. I believe 1867, and that is quite literally the first thing, aside from gravestones,
right.
That is the first thing put up at Gettysburg.
So first monument, memorial, all the different words for first of all of them.
It's the first thing.
And they have 3, though.
Yes, but
that's the first one.
First. And then 30 years pass. Mm-hmm. And the Fox book did a lot to attract attention to the first Minnesota and the story at Gettysburg. And in 1897, they put up the state memorial. Fox's thing is a little weird. And a lot of people, I have heard Fox misrepresented in terms of equating death with courage. That the regiments that fought the best had the highest death rates.
Oh, yeah.
And if you see a regiment that has light losses,
they didn't fight hard.
They didn't, they weren't really in it. And it's a strange way of measuring.
Well, it is, because a lot of people say Buford's division didn't fight hard because they only took like 200 casualties out of 2,500 men or 2,900 men. But it's maybe they just fought a little better.
I was looking for a good example to spread that, because that we still see that happen.
Yeah.
You'll see tours all the time. Well, this regiment really fought hard. They had 60% casualties. Is that really how we measure what they did? Mm-hmm. Maybe you guys should learn how to duck better, and you'll have lower levels of casualty. But here's an example in the Valley Campaign, really before the Valley Campaign, but if you include the Valley Campaign is usually May to July. If we start a little earlier, this 1862, this famous Jackson-Shenandoah Valley Campaign, the 75th Pennsylvania has the highest number of deaths of any regiment at the beginning through June. I had a hard time finding these kind of numbers, but through the beginning of June, no one had the deaths that the 75th Pennsylvania had in the Valley Campaign. All German regiment out of Philadelphia, and 53 dead. Boy, did they fight hard. They were crossing the Shenandoah River when it was swollen. They overloaded a ferry boat. The damn thing flipped over, and 53 guys drowned.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So not necessarily a measure of valor,
right?
As much as who thought they could put that many guys into the ferry boat?
So, but that is interesting though, because you hear that and if you picture battle, you go, "Wow, that's some hard fighting," and then you hear accident on a barge, and you're like, "Oh."
Or deaths from disease.
Or deaths from disease. It's like, "Aw," but that's some suffering there.
They're still dead. The families. Your son is dead. I regret to inform.
Exactly.
And that was at Berry Ferry, crossing the Shenandoah, which leads me to the wisdom. So if you ever have a ferry crossing that rhymes, don't get in the boat. Yeah. Berry Ferry.
Wow. Yeah. But, that's another point, though, is that, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, you get the word that your son died in the service, and you go, Sergeant, what did he die of? He goes, diarrhea. Yeah. And you go, oh, well, he didn't fight hard.
Scarlett O'Hara's husband died of measles.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, he wasn't fighting hard. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the mother doesn't care, right? How the kid dies. The kid dies, the kid dies.
So I had those 2 quotes from 1st Minnesota setting up the drama on that moment on Cemetery Ridge. Let me give you 2 quotes from historians. Bruce Catton. The whole war had suddenly come to focus on this smoky hollow with a few score Westerners trading their lives for the time the Army needed. Trading their lives. I mean, these are untrained. They're not professional soldiers. They learned a lot on the battlefield in 2 years. But, the Europeans think, the American war is a slugfest between mobs. These are undisciplined soldiers. These are not real soldiers.
Right.
These guys are samurai.
Yeah.
They're throwing their lives away. And they know it. They're looking up at that. How do you make that?
And I don't understand I don't understand a lot about the mindset of a soldier, but especially like, hey, I'm waiting for reinforcements. Can you guys go out there with your 215 men or whatever it was that was actually there?
We'll get into that if we can. Yeah.
And then can you go out there against that seemingly 1,300 or so?
I need you to go do this.
Yeah. I mean, but they do it. Mm-hmm. They do it. That's what gets me. It's like,
that's what I mean.
Do it.
And how do you stand there with a group of people and what words do you use? Mm-hmm. You just showed them what happened. Almost every guide has this experience. I was leading a tour with a retired high-ranking officer who looked at Pickett's charge in that context from the Confederate side. Yeah. He said, today you can't get men to do this.
No. Well, they didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Or did they?
And I don't know, sometimes I question that,
What, if
we just had dozens and dozens of men in helicopters in the dark flying 200 miles into Iran to find one, rear weapons officer who was hiding out in the mountains in the dark, hoping they'd find him. And these guys could all gotten shot down. They're flying into they don't. There's a helo pilot hopefully knows where he's going, but the guys in the back don't know where they're going.
I would feel a little.
There's some guts.
To me, again, I've never done this. I would feel a little more secure being those guys.
Because they're professional soldiers.
Well, they're professionals, and I'm not walking into a wall of men who outnumber me by 1,100.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, I can see what's coming at me. I can see
myself sitting in the back of the helicopter, flying through desert mountains, saying to the guy next to me, the pilot looks awfully young. How old do you think the kid is?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like when I get pulled over by a young cop. I'm like,
shaves yet.
Yeah.
He's not going to hit that mountain over there. He does see that, doesn't he?
Yeah. But they're always young. They're only old in the movies.
So let's talk about Minnesota. What a weird state.
Okay. What an accent.
As you know, Minnesota, the first people to settle in Minnesota were Somalians. Okay. Sorry. Ripped from today's headlines.
This is a great time to say
that's funny.
Thank you to Kevin Miller.
Kevin Miller? What does he say?
He sent us $20, $19.99.
Wow.
Silver than dirt.
Just wanted to say, I love addressing Gettysburg. This is Kevin speaking, but through me. You guys do such a great job. Just wanted to show my appreciation.
Well, we'll disabuse him of that in the next 7 hours, won't we?
Yeah, right.
Minnesota's an interesting state. 1850, the Minnesota Territory has 10,000 non-Indians.
Okay.
And I'll apologize in advance to elementary school teachers who are PCS. I call them Indians. I'm sorry.
Oh, they shut it off when I made that Jim McGreevy joke, so don't worry.
Yeah.
They're done.
And I have, since I've been in college, donated every month a small amount, but it builds up over the decades, to the American Indian College Fund.
There you go. So he can say whatever he wants.
When the American Indians who are running the American Indian College Fund decide to say they're going to be the Indigenous College Fund, I'll stop saying it.
Okay.
Until then, I think it's all right.
All right.
This is just an education guess.
Yes. So we don't know. Nobody has a good count. The census didn't count Indians.
I feel like I need this ready.
But there's 10,000 people in 1850. It becomes a state in 1858, and in the 1860 census, there are 200,000 people living in Minnesota.
So in 10 years.
But in New Jersey terms, that's a joke because we don't have counties that have more than that. But that's 190,000 people over 10 years moved into Minnesota. 2/3 of them Americans from other states, 1/3 immigrants.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Germans, Irish, and Norwegian in that order.
Mm-hmm.
So an interesting mishmash.
That's interesting. So Germans, Irish, and Norwegian. So Norwegians are last, but I always think
in
of
terms
Norwegian.
of the concentration in Minnesota.
Sure. Yeah. But I always think of Minnesota as very Norwegian more than anything else. Did they eventually overtake them?
I don't think so. It's just, Norwegians. Because half the country's German, so that doesn't really catch that much attention.
And Irish and English.
The Irish are like,
Norwegian. Okay.
But,
so it's really just that.
Lutefisk.
What? Ludenfisk?
Lutefisk.
Nyland.
So it's an interesting state. And former territorial governor, now the Republican governor. They elected a Republican, which back then, remember, that's the left-wing radical, just upstarts. Mm-hmm. I think that's under the influence of Wisconsin. And alcohol. Wisconsin was a strong Republican state. That's where our friend Carl Schurz is the Republican Party chairman. Yeah. So we think they have influence over Minnesota. Nevertheless, Alexander Ramsey is on a patronage visit to the White House. You know, we need a little more money, and I need some patronage jobs. You know, Minnesota needs a postmaster and a railroad commissioner and a this and that, and we want the federal government to pay for that because we're a territory and we don't have any money. They're a state now, but they don't have any money still. And he shows up at the White House to visit with Lincoln when Lincoln's like, I'm a little busy. I just fired out that the Confederates fired on Fort Sumter.
Wow.
You know, and the Civil War is starting while the governor's sitting in the lobby. And he zips over to the War Department and says, we have your first volunteers. Because he wanted the federal government to pay for it. Okay. Because all the other states have to raise their regiments, buy the uniforms, all this stuff. Right. So he figured if he gets through the door first and gets Stanton and said, we will be the first regiment. But I need uniforms, guns, boots. Train fare would be nice. And so they agree. They fund the 1st Minnesota. Lincoln the next day makes the call for 75,000 troops to put down the rebellion. And the 1st Minnesota is very literally the very first regiment in the Union Army. And the Minnesota Civil War Monument, I don't think I have a picture of this guy.
So you're saying they're not only the first from Minnesota,
they're the first regiment in the United States.
Because the governor was right there when the war broke out.
If he's there a week earlier and on the way home, I don't think they'd even have any regiments.
That's amazing.
But and so they have a monument in St. Paul, their Civil War State Memorial, that has Josiah King, a statue of Josiah King at the very top. He is the very first Union soldier of the Civil War, according to all of them. 29-year-old guy who was the very first recruit. A typical company that Richard Moe had a breakdown, the Stillwater Guard, Company B, had a militia unit already. Minnesota is a violence-ridden state. We talked about this a little at your Tavern Talk programs. That probably hasn't You know, the word terrorism applies. The pioneers on the open prairies and Northlands were under terrorist attack from Indians.
Right.
The Dakota, of Northern and the Chippewa, routinely attacked settlements of civilians.
Right.
They felt their homeland was being encroached upon, but you know, for the white Europeans, this was out of bounds. You want to attack the army, you attack the army, but you don't attack civilians.
Right.
And it really was what we would in modern time consider to be terrorism, and it terrorized Minnesota. So these soldiers in the 1st Minnesota is already not that big a surprise that the guys know how to handle themselves and know how to handle firearms because they're living on the prairie. And weapons is a part of life.
Better than living on a prayer.
No, that's back in New Jersey. New Jersey doesn't allow guns. So this one Stillwater Guard company.
I think Court, you have something?
No, I'll say.
Let me just. I wanted to point this out. This one company that Richard Moe had details on. He found every single guy in this company, and he was able to point out 39 of them were foreign-born, 47 were native-born. None of them were born in Minnesota. So that shows you the character. This really is an American regiment.
Yeah.
They all happen to be showing up in Minnesota because, you know, it's nice. It's up there until October. And then I said, what the hell were we thinking?
Right.
And
this is going to last till June.
The other Minnesotans say, oh, don't worry, it'll melt by June. What? You know, but anyway.
Yeah. I can forgive the first generation. It's the second one that I don't understand.
22,000 Minnesotans. In the state of 200,000, 22,000 Minnesotas will join the Union Army and form 11 different regiments, along with heavy artillery. And so Josiah King, the first guy, And the last Union veteran to die is a Minnesotan. There's a statue of him up by Ziegler's Grove, Alfred Wilson, who's 109 years old. When he dies in 1956, he enlisted in the 1st Minnesota Heavy Artillery in 1864. He didn't fight at Gettysburg, but he was an officer in the GAR, so he was at Gettysburg a lot. And they show him there with the big walking sticks, and you know the statue.
Yeah, sure.
So that's first soldier, last soldier. So Minnesota,
That's,
not to be overlooked.
And the 2nd Minnesota did something of a fighting withdrawal at Chickamauga and took enormous casualties. So, less than a few months after Gettysburg, the next Minnesota regiment in the numerical order is laying down another supreme sacrifice.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you think about not just the first going out against Willcox, but, you made me think of the 16th Maine when you say, like, what do you say to each other? You go out there, how do you go out with these people? And you all just get shot up and everything. Same with the 16th Maine. Like, there's a number of stories, obviously, throughout the whole war and warfare in general, but like that I can just think of from here where it's like, how did they do it? Yeah. How did they do it? Like the odds are ridiculous. And the officer who gives the order, Hancock in this case, who gives the order, you, this minuscule unit, go out there against that wave of humanity coming at you. I don't understand. I don't understand the grunt and his mindset, and I don't understand Hancock and how you can order that. But you have to be, as Lee reminds us in the movie Gettysburg, you have to be willing to order the death of the thing you love.
The good. Yeah. To be a good soldier, you must love the army.
Yes.
To be a good commander, you must order the death of the thing you love. To be a good film director, you must destroy the script that the writer gave you and put in stuff that didn't happen.
Put in a lot of music. Tad, real quick, go to the computer here so that everybody can see, for those of you wondering.
There he is.
Alfred
Look at that.
Wilson.
You guys are
there he is. He's got his little statue here at Gettysburg. It's right at the end of Hancock Avenue. Just a little bit north of the Bryan Farm.
Ziegler's Grove.
Ziegler's Grove.
He passed in 1958, I think. Six? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Bob Steenstra always likes to say that he was born, I think, a year after the last Civil War veteran died.
I was born a month before he died.
A month before he died, right.
Oh, yeah. So next me to the Civil War.
So for all of you young folk out there who think, like Tad, for example, Tad doesn't think anything that happened before his birthday matters in the world.
Of course.
And
Tad should made my daughter. She has the same
attitude. Well, yeah, but look at this, though. Like your dad, Amy, or Tad, old Ralph over here, was alive born a month before the last Civil War veteran croaked.
I don't know if it counts because I was on the other side of the world.
I don't think it matters.
Across the pond.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't meet him.
My point, well, of course, but my point is that your lives overlapped. Your lifetimes overlapped.
How about
80 years
back there?
What, Roger? You met a Civil War veteran or something?
No, but he had a good 9 years on Wilson.
On Wilson, okay. So you were alive
Wilson
while he was living the last years of his life.
80 years ain't that much.
No, it isn't.
80 years is not that much. We're 80 years from World War II. World War II was 80 years from the Civil War.
Right.
Civil War was 80 years from the Revolutionary War. Yeah. We just ain't that old.
No, we ain't.
And then you go over to Rome, and one of our mutual friends is just
Jim's over there,
and it's like talk about old.
Well, Hessler's younger than you are.
I meant the place he's at.
Rome is old. Yeah.
And it's like
that wasn't.
So anyway, our commanding officer at Gettysburg starts out as a militia, as a company captain. His name is William Colville. We have a picture of him in the uniform, but I like this picture better. This is a post-war picture.
Post-war,
but he's just, what a beard on that guy,
Yeah.
There's the what do you call these beards? The Van Dykes? Yeah.
It's a big bushy beard.
Yeah.
There he is, right there.
What an interesting man. Here is he is in uniform.
There he is in uniform. Oh, it's very different without that beard. Now I see why he has the beard.
Yeah,
he looks like something out of Planet of the Apes in that one, but I could see the beard helped. I look the same way, by the way.
He's a New Yorker. He born in 1930 in Forestville, studies law in the office the Buffalo office of Millard Fillmore, who founded the university up there and then ends up becoming a terrible president, anti-immigrant, and he hated Lincoln. But anyway, so he got his law degree and moves to Red Wing, Minnesota, where he skips the law and founds a newspaper, the Red Wing Sentinel. So William Colville is a newspaper man and a lawyer, so he can defend himself in court against libel. Good for him.
Good.
He volunteers to join Company H, and he brags that he was the first volunteer because the first one running up to sign up tripped over a chair, and he passed over him, and he got to that table first. And he's elected captain. Back day, the Minnesotan companies elect their captains. 1862, he moves up to major. First Minnesota's by the book. More other regiments get creative, but they have a colonel, a lieutenant colonel, and a major. Those are the three field officers. All the rest of them are captains in command of companies. Later, it got much more creative, but these are the first guys, so, you know.
Creative how?
Well, like you'd have one colonel, or a major would be in command, or you'd have three major. You know, you'd see different structures. When the first Minnesota, if the lieutenant colonel gets promoted or goes home, everybody moves up one. They were very regimented as a regiment.
Well, it's about time.
At Gettysburg, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Powell Adams, not born far from here in Rainsburg, Pennsylvania, goes to medical school in Cincinnati, keeps going west, and moves to Minnesota 1851 opens practice as a medical doctor. On May 6th, when Colville is advanced to a colonel, Charles Adams becomes the lieutenant colonel. And for reasons we may or may not have time to go into, Charles Adams is not popular with the men. They don't really like him all that much. And reading some of the accounts that he reports, you can kind of understand why. Okay, so they... here's I got a little thing on the regiment. In May of 1864, Colville goes home. He's too badly injured, his Gettysburg wound. And Adams now takes command and tries to convince, this is the 3 years of run-up, and he tries to convince the regiment to re-enlist, but only 50 guys are willing to do this. So, you know, something, we're just going home because we really don't like this guy. And Adams, after the war, will write articles bragging that William Colville wasn't even at Gettysburg and that he led the charge, which, of course, everybody who's alive knows is. So this is Adams, you know. Our most interesting biographer is Lieutenant William Loughran, a native of Ireland, but after the war becomes a federal judge. And so a very esteemed leader in the community, and he writes regimental histories and lots of articles about the 1st Minnesota, and he's richly quoted in Moe's book and everybody else.
Here we go. We got him here, Tad.
Yes.
Yeah. There he
Lieutenant
is.
William Loughran. So the regiment is organized in May of 1861. They're very enthusiastic, 950 men. And they are all sent to the Indian frontier at the forts, Snelling and other forts, which is not what they signed up for. Then the news arrives from the governor that the 3-month regiment has been converted to a 3-year regiment.
Oh.
Now, this is before that was even happening yet.
Yeah.
And a third of them go home.
I would too.
Yeah, so
it's the old bait and switch.
But they will add they will add more guys, and so they will get back to a full strength of 950 before they march off. I think the list of companies is interesting. Your listeners will probably think it's tedious, and by the time I get to the bottom, you'll have no listeners left.
Right.
I'm going to do it anyway because I'm here. So Company A is the Pioneer Guard. Company B, the Stillwater Guard. Company C, the St. Paul Volunteers. Company D, the Minneapolis Lincoln Guard. Company E, the St. Anthony Zouaves. Company F, the Red Wing Volunteers. That's Colville's company. Company G, the Faribault Guard. Company H, the Dakota Volunteers. That's Adams is in charge of that group. Company I, the Wabash Volunteers, and the K is the Winona Volunteers. All names. They don't know what regiment they're going to be. They're all in the 1st Regiment. And then they get the news that they are deploying to Washington. The St. Paul Pioneer has a reporter there, and this is his quote in his story. The men did not stop to even put on their clothing, but were rushing around, hurrahing and hugging one another as wild as a crowd of schoolboys at the announcement of a vacation. We're going to Washington. We're marching off. We're not going to miss the war.
Right.
Oh, boy. You know.
Rather stay in Minnesota.
Private Edward Stevens writing a letter to the local newspaper under the strange pseudonym Raisins. We will soon be very glad of the chance to do our share toward showing the traitors of the South what the nerve and steel of the mudsills form in a disagreeable mass for them to swallow. You know, they refer to the northern immigrants as mudsills. He says, yeah, here come the mudsills. You know. And they get down to Washington, and Stevens writes about running into a recruit from New York who asks him, where are you guys from? And he says, Minnesota. And he said, yeah, okay, I heard, but what state are you from? The poor Minnesotans. Bull Run.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
They're still wearing red shirts. They haven't gotten the right uniforms yet. And they're assigned to protect Ricketts Battery, which is right on the heights.
Right up there, yeah.
By Henry House Hill there.
Right by the visitor center.
And they face off an attack by two regiments, the 2nd Mississippi, 4th Alabama. They repulse the attack and save the battery, and they are the only regiment that will capture an officer, Lieutenant Colonel Bartley Boone of the 2nd Mississippi.
Oh, Bartley Boone.
Apparently bleeding profusely from the face from a couple of punches.
Bart.
And dragged into the back, the first Confederate officer taken prisoner.
How at this point in the war, at the start of the war, did they get up to the full 1,000?
They're at 950.
Very close, guys. Very close.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, their flag gets shot to pieces, and they have to get a new one.
At Bull Run.
Yeah, their flag bearer, Asa Miller, is hit by 3 bullets, picks up a gun, and keeps firing until just spontaneously collapses dead, probably internal bleeding. 3 or 4 color bearers killed and wounded, 30 killed and wounded in the color company. Coville himself will lead his company and personally capture 7 prisoners out of the 2nd Mississippi. So there's some fists flying and men dying. And their commander, Willis Gorman, has to endure unfair rumors of cowardice. He's a well-connected political guy, former territorial governor, officer in the Mexican War. And Gorman, these rumors are that he kind of disappeared in the height of the fighting, but so they promote him to brigadier general. So that's kind of a little bit of 1861. This guy's a little in trouble. Let's promote him. You'll see that change later, but this is still at the beginning. They have the #1 losses at Bull Run of any Union regiment. 49 dead, 107 wounded, 34 prisoners lost, 20% of the regiment.
Wow.
You know, they were in the, and this is the first battle.
Right.
Yeah.
So they already saw these Westerners from Minnesota, these Indian fighters and pioneers. This is establishing himself an elite regiment. Matthew Marvin is very proud of the regiment. Everybody said we were the best regiment on the Potomac, for we always paid our debts, and no man could say we were sheep or chicken thieves, which could not be said of the other regiments. The fact is, they just don't catch us. For there was a pelt in front of my tent, and the ground next to my tent was covered with feathers. So the elite regiment doesn't get caught stealing. Battle of Fair Oaks, they are again hit by the 2nd Mississippi and the 4th Alabama.
What a coincidence.
And what's Gettysburg?
Yeah.
Mississippi and Alabama, not those specific regiments.
Right. But still.
Savage's Station, they fight a rearguard action that cost them another 100 killed and wounded. They missed the heavy fight. Well, they're in the heavy fight at Antietam, but the regiment next to them, the 15th Massachusetts, is the one that's famous for getting crushed in the West Woods in Jubal Early's counterattack into their flank. The 1st Minnesota was next to them, so they were not on the flank exactly, but they still had 118 casualties at that point out of 450 left. So that regiment is dwindling in size. Brigadier General Alfred Sully is the commander of the brigade that they're in. He's an old friend of theirs. And at Fredericksburg, they were protecting a artillery battery, and they were ordered forward. And Brigadier General Alfred Sully, having seen the massacres at Maurice Heights, refused to advance anyone in his brigade. Disobeyed the order. When Joe Hooker takes command of the Army, the first thing he does is he sends Sully west to go deal with the Indians. I don't like guys who don't follow orders to attack, even though he wasn't the commander overall at the time. And in April of 1863, only 2 months ago, Governor Ramsey, who's now been elected to the U.S. Senate, he's nearby in Washington, comes to visit the 1st Minnesota in camp and give them a new flag. What they don't know is he's back in Washington twisting arms in the War Department to have them been the whole regiment sent back to Minnesota to help guard the Indian frontier. But the Army of the Potomac will hold on to the 1st Minnesota because they've shown themselves to be a regiment that you don't let go away. So the march to Gettysburg, they're on the march for 11 days. The heaviest day of marching, June 29th, they marched 33 miles over the Monocacy River to Uniontown. Colville wants to give them a break in crossing the Monocacy River. There's a log bridge nearby that forms them to get, they're marching column of force right to the water, up to their hips and back out again. And now their crappy leather shoes are soaking wet. And no, they scurry over and start running over the log. A inspector, one of the provost marshal inspectors, hears about this. He doesn't even see it. He hears about it, and Colville's placed under arrest. So now Adams is in charge of the regiment as they march into Gettysburg.
So he's placed under arrest because they used the log.
Because his men didn't follow orders in marching through the water they were supposed, and it slowed things up.
Yeah.
The fact
that this.
Yeah.
Got him good.
July 1, they're in Harneytown. They're moving north toward the 2nd Corps concentration point. They can hear the heavy sound of artillery, and they soon put us march toward the sound of the guns. And July 2nd, they're up at 3 a.m. They arrive in Gettysburg in the dark at 4 and take position in the hollow right near the Leicester farmhouse in between Cemetery Ridge and the National Cemetery.
And
Cemetery Hill.
It wasn't rotting then, the Leicester house.
It's rotting? Looks all right to me.
The Leicester. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the
Klingel.
Yeah. Take 2. Yes,
Rewind.
the Leicester house.
Yeah,
yes,
the Leicesters. Meade's headquarters.
Right.
They're sitting on the ground there, and artillery shells are flying overhead, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not scared of that anymore." And an order comes down from General Gibbon. Here's some of the leather on these guys. Order comes down from General Gibbon. Any soldier leaving the ranks without leave shall be shot.
Nice.
Yeah.
The only guy who writes about this is Sergeant John Plummer, 1st Minnesota. We all felt better after hearing this. I have always thought that it would be good to make these kinds of addresses to the troops before going into action, to rouse their enthusiasm and make them fight much better. Napoleon used to do it, and the Southerners do it, but it is practiced little in our army. One thing our armies lack is enthusiasm, and no efforts are made to create it. So here Gibbon's threatening them all with, you turn around and go the wrong direction, you're authorized to be shot.
Right.
And the 1st Minnesota said, it's about that time.
Well, yeah, because if he probably is a guy that doesn't turn around, and he sees other people who do, and they don't get shot. In fact, they're just back.
They've
the
had
next
enough,
day.
and they're marching. They're marching with their provisions, hardtack and salt pork. They say, hell with that. They're picking up rabbits and biting off their heads and eating them raw.
Yeah,
that's the kind of guy I made that. I'm kidding.
Real
sorry.
man.
Somebody out there's going to listen to that and say what he did.
Real quick though, real quick. I must do this because this is my solemn pact with my audience. David Geister, talented, fantastic artist, $10 super chat. He says, I'm currently sculpting and painting 2 realistic mannequins of the Taylor brothers for the Minnesota Military and Veterans Museum. I also did a bird's eye painting of the charge a few years ago. Cheers. Yes. Excuse me. Just choked on my own spit.
Water?
Yeah, thank you. How do I get a copy of that, David? I would love to, because I have his little round top one in the hallway, and I framed it. I love it. Anyway.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's the one that's on the new
place?
marker.
Yeah. That's great.
Up on top. I love. Isn't it great? Yeah. The bird's eye view. I mean, I'm sure
the
someone.
perspective you get.
It reminds me of those old. What were those books?
Where's Waldo?
No. They were like
Waldo?
bird's eye.
2 years ago, where's Waldo? He's talking when we were kids.
Forget it. I'm when we were kids. Well, what do you?
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
I just can't. It's not.
The
They were little hardcovers that were like a 1/4-inch thick.
Yes.
Yes.
It wasn't the Babysitter's Club. It was close. Nancy Drew or
Bird's
something.
Oh God.
But it'll come to somebody in the audience, and
I
they'll
was
let us
going to do
know.
the super chats, but I had not found an organic way.
Moment. Yeah, sometimes you just got to do it when Ralph's here. You got to stop him.
You got to.
Yeah. But no, so, and real quick, somebody, I think it was Mac Gillespie, gave one, and he wants us to give Court a Dan Butterfield.
Dan, Butterfield.
Because he likes his goatee.
Goatee. That's the word I was looking for.
All right. I'm sorry. I had to stop you there because I know you're getting to Gettysburg, and I don't want to stop once we're in Gettysburg. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, 717-420-1978 is the phone number to call. If you have any questions for Ralph or you just want to tell him how wonderful he is, I know a lot of people love you, Ralph. You are what we call America's LBG. All right. Go ahead.
So, order of battle. Everybody loves order of battle, but it's easy. There's 4 regiments in this brigade. William Harrow. We're not crazy about William Harrow.
Sure.
But he's a friend of Lincoln, so like...
What are you going to do, right?
William Harrow, commander of the brigade, 4 regiments, 82nd New York, 15th Massachusetts, 19th Maine. All tough, experienced regiments, and the 1st Minnesota, and they're all sitting around in front of the Leicester House watching the occasional cannonball go flying overhead.
Right.
The 1st Minnesota will actually have 3 casualties from artillery shells that are whipping along. And this is before any, serious action, but they're dinging away at each other. And the artillery fighting in the Peach Orchard area is getting pretty heavy, but I can't imagine any shells reached from there, but,
But that's a good point, though, because movies make you think it's all quiet, everybody's having a picnic, and somebody opens fire. But they're taking shots at each other all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, July 3rd,
or
it was
you just
quiet
get in your range
for
or
a
something.
bit, but yeah.
But there's always something going on.
Yeah. And for those 3 guys, one of them was killed. It's not nothing.
Right, exactly.
So they're in the reserve. The first two brigades are up front. Gibbons got 2 brigades deployed to sort of left of the copse of trees and to the angle. This brigade is the reserve brigade. These are the guys you cherry pick from. Now, General Dan moves the 3rd Corps out to the Emmitsburg Road and to the Peach Orchard. And Andrew Humphreys, his line doesn't reach past the Kadori Farm. And he's worried that his line from the Peach Orchard area down to Kadori Farm could be flanked on the right. And I'm not an expert on the communication that occurred there. I got a funny feeling Andrew Humphreys was just like waving his hand in the air, and Gibbon could see him up there. And so he sends the 15th Massachusetts and the 82nd New York through the line and down to the Emmitsburg Road to extend Humphreys' line. So they're protecting Humphreys' flank. And the rest of them are sitting around. Yeah, William Loughran. We lay quietly in a slight hollow, fairly secure from the enemy's shells, which came over us occasionally, killing one of our men and wounding another. It doesn't sound like that's secure, but all right. And here comes the reserve artillery. They deploy batteries to shore up the Emmitsburg Road line and the Peach Orchard. I have to go back to your gunfight at the Peach Orchard to get names here. And then eventually they say, okay, enough with this piecemeal stuff, and they move Freeman McGilvery's entire 1st Volunteer Brigade up to support the 3rd Corps guns up in the Peach Orchard.
Freeman McGilvery's Volunteer Brigade of Artillery.
Yes.
Is what you're talking about there.
Yes.
And also you referred to Gunfight at the Peach Orchard, which is an old episode we did with Ralph about the artillery duel before the fighting.
Now, the reason this plays into this...
You might want to go check that out there. Sorry, Ralph, go ahead.
The 1st Regular Brigade, Captain Dunbar Ransom, 4 United States Army batteries, all of them with 6 12-pounder Napoleons. It's the only brigade in the Union Army over which Henry Hunt had complete control, and they're all Napoleons, which reminds me of our, I think, as yet unreleased episode.
The Mighty Napoleon.
The Napoleon at Gettysburg.
Yeah. You had a good name for it.
I did.
Boom goes the Napoleon.
Power. Napoleon Power. Boom goes the Napoleon.
David Greenspan did a series of the bird's eye paintings for American Heritage book of the Civil War.
There it is.
That's
American Heritage books.
Yep.
Okay,
cream colored.
These are 4 United States Army batteries. These are the elites. These are professional. So many of them have been in the artillery for years before the war started. And they're going to deploy these 4 batteries carefully. Lieutenant John Turnbull's battery will go out to support Andrew Humphreys on the Emmitsburg Road. Julian Weir will move his battery up toward the copse of trees and basically supporting Gibbon's division, holding that area up there. Chandler Eakin, for the moment, he basically deploys up onto Cemetery Hill and the eastern side of Cemetery Hill. And then we come to Lieutenant Evan Thomas, 4th United States Battery C, 6 Napoleons. And you can find their monument and 2 Napoleons representing them in the front left of the Pennsylvania Memorial. And they are up there in the middle of John Caldwell's division of the 2nd Corps. And over on the boulder is Father Corby giving absolution, and the Irish are all taking a knee, and everybody's like, and the fighting's boiling over into the wheat field, and off they go. And there's Evan Thomas's battery, like, WTF, you know, batteries have to be supported, and here's this battery, and the soldiers all left.
Hey, what happened?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, there's artillery flying around, but they see this whole battlefield in front of them, and they're doing their bit, but they're like, and I don't know if Thomas sent that by somebody. These guys don't write all that stuff down, so if it's not written down, we don't have it. It's not in the official reports that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
If anybody listening has something, but somehow, you know, please send it to me, but Thomas gets word to Hancock, or General Hancock, commander of the 2nd Corps, sees them or whatever, and standard operating procedure. There's got to be a regiment over there protecting this battery. Runs back to the hill where these guys are sitting, where they've been pulling, you know, and they send the 19th Maine up to protect Julian Weir's battery. And he personally marches the 1st Minnesota all the way over to the location of the present-day Pennsylvania Memorial to protect Evan Thomas's battery.
Okay, so that's why they're there.
That's why they're there.
Oh, okay.
They're there to cover the battery.
Yeah, all right.
Can't have a battery, but Hancock driving down to the Leicester farm, where he certainly has been on this is 19th Maine. Just go up there. But this, where I'm asking these guys to go, it's not that. You got to go past 2 farms, make a right turn. You know, don't make a left into the visitor center. Don't go down there. and so he leads them himself to make sure that they go. Hancock will lead them himself
to Thomas.
To Thomas's position, because it's possible Thomas is moving.
Yeah.
So because you can't see from that hollow. You can hear everything, but you can't see. When I do my battle walk on the 1st Minnesota, I walk them along the route of their march, and you can't see over the crest of Cemetery Ridge. You cannot see what's going on.
So they're on the east side of the ridge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where they were, and they just keep marching until they get to the Hummelbaugh farm.
Uh-huh.
And at the Hummelbaugh farm, there is a dirt road there, and they make a right turn and go up to the position, and the world is unveiled. The writer, who identifies himself as Sergeant, now we held a grand sight. Below and before us was the plain where the battle was raging. Every movement was discernible, and we watched with the anxiety of spectators so deeply interested in the outcome. Though but little of this could be seen in the faces of our boys, long accustomed to conceal their emotions. When the wind would raise the veil of smoke, but few could repress a smile or an exclamation of delight to see that our flag was still there and that our men were crowding to fight. So Humphrey's division, which is in front of him, is putting up a scrape.
Right.
You know, Sickles does that, General Dan, all of them, that's a whole nother story. And 5th Corps is going out to help them out. But Humphrey's guys, they're in a brawl. And, you know, you look at the stories of the, you know, the 11th New Jersey and the 12th New Hampshire and, you know, falling back, tearing the flag out of the color bearers' dead hands. I mean, they put up a fight.
Yeah.
There's 12 Napoleons up there firing at these advancing Confederates, which includes Willcox's brigade. Now, I point this out for a reason. To jump ahead a little bit, when Willcox is making that attack, and you'd be surprised how many people get this wrong, Willcox is far from full strength. So we don't really know how badly hurt he's been, but he himself has been shot off a horse and literally blown off of a fence. He climbed onto a fence to see what was going on, and one of Francis Sealy's 12-pounders hit the fence with a solid and blew the fence to pieces, and Cadmus Willcox went flying.
Oh my God!
So
and he's still with the advance.
Yeah, he got up and said, "Okay, well, let's not do that anymore." so you know.
Right, because before Willcox gets over to where the 1st Minnesota meets them,
he's got to get through Carr, you know,
right.
Joseph Carr's brigade in Humphrey's division with William Brewster's Excelsior brigade on the left.
Excelsior!
You know,
so let me ask you this, though. When Willcox steps off and then goes against Carr and everything, is he with his? Because I always see the number that he's got 1,300 or so.
Yeah,
right.
That's the order of battle number when they start.
Well, I mean, in other words,
first of all, he's lost a regiment.
Okay, I was going to ask,
Okay,
have they left any regiments behind or anything like that, or detached service?
If you know how July 2nd starts,
no.
Or you go back to the amphitheater area where they have that little pull-off, Bernie Avenue. Yeah. And you see the monuments back there for the sharpshooters and a marker for the 3rd Maine. That's where it starts on July 2nd.
Okay.
Alabama skirmishers run into U.S. sharpshooters, and they have a fight in those woods and in the fields in front of it. As a result of this, Willcox, who's protecting the right flank of the Army of Northern Virginia, deploys his most reliable regiment and his most reliable regimental officer, Colonel Hillary Herbert, and the 8th Alabama, 475 strong, facing south. They're facing those woods, the Pitzer Woods, where those sharpshooters had come from. Because they don't know there's more coming. They don't know there's going to be an attack. This is the flank of Lee's army. Mm-hmm. And they're facing that way when Willcox's brigade steps off on the attack.
All right, so let me just I just want to show the audience because you were kind of jumping all over the battlefield there.
I am jumping around.
So okay, amphitheater here, and we're facing west.
Yeah.
Okay, amphitheater.
So you can see Bernie Avenue. Berdan. I said Bernie. I'm sorry. Berdan Avenue.
We know what you meant here.
Right.
Let's zoom in.
Right.
So you got a little loop there. There's a couple monuments back there.
The 8th Alabama is facing that.
So they're facing it from over here.
Yeah, well, they're in a line across the road, which doesn't exist, and out into the open fields facing south. In the picture you have, facing towards the left.
Right, okay, right. So they're facing, yeah.
Willcox's other 4 regiments are facing the Klingel farm.
They're facing this way.
Right.
Okay,
they're looking at that farm saying, man, that thing's rotten. They got to start fixing that up. Look at that.
What did they use, latex paint?
I bet they used latex paint on that thing. What the hell are those Union guys thinking? And the point is, when Willcox is waiting, he's waiting. He sees Barksdale, Mississippi regiments turn at the Peach Orchard and advance toward the Klingel farm.
So here's the Peach Orchard.
That's his cue.
And they're turning towards the Klingel farm, which is here. So
right,
they're turning north.
Right. And that's Willcox's cue to advance. You know,
he's coming from over here.
They're part of
AP Hill.
No, well, the division. It's just Richard Anderson's division. And they're supposed to attack an echelon, brigade at a time, as they see McLaw's divisions advancing. Mm-hmm. Well, here comes Okay, well, there's Bark. They can't see anything else because of the slope of the ground. Here comes Barksdale. Well, it took them long enough, but here they come. And so Willcox launches an attack, and we have a pincer attack. It couldn't have been better if they'd planned it. The 11th New Jersey is right at the point, and the 12th New Hampshire, and they get crushed in this pincer attack between Barksdale and Willcox. But Willcox is taking losses, including the 8th Alabama, which is facing the wrong way. And when I do the tour, sometimes it reminds me of that scene in Black Hawk Down with the 2 machine gunners in that street all by themselves saying, I think they've forgotten us. Yeah, well, I think Hillary Herbert's like, where are they going?
Yeah.
So Herbert will turn his regiment by the left into a column and marches to the Trossel Farm. But he's separated from the rest of the brigade. So Willcox going up into what we call the Cadore Thicket, crossing the Emmitsburg Road, is advancing with 3 regiments.
Aha.
So the order of battle by itself brings him down from 1,700 to 1,200.
Okay.
And how many of those 1,200 are lying bleeding on the ground under artillery fire from 12 Napoleon cannon, blasting canister and whatnot? Now, their losses are 50%.
Oh.
I think they've had a lot of those losses already.
Before they get it. Yeah.
So they're crossing the Emmitsburg Road and coming down that slope.
Well, and those Napoleons have to be doing some damage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I would say, especially the closer you get, the meaner they get.
That's right.
They shift the canister to 150 yards. Oh, good grief.
Oh,
I'm running back to Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah.
Man.
So just for everybody to look at the map here one more time, just so that we get our bearings here, okay? So to the right, you got the Cadore Farm is over here. All right, you see that there, and so
what you're doing with that little mouse.
You
thing?
got I think they can. Well, not on their phones, but it's where we got the copse of trees there. Why am I not? I've gone blind to. Okay, yeah. So let's see here.
The triangle is with
copse
the
of trees right
Pennsylvania
here.
Memorial. You're right.
Yeah, copse of trees is right here.
Yeah.
All right. First Minnesota is one of their monuments is here. The obelisk.
That's tomorrow.
I know. But
Don't be going
But isn't this originally their position in line?
Nope.
No.
No.
Oh no, it isn't because it's back here. Sorry, you went through that whole thing,
right.
and I was distracted.
Yeah.
Okay, so now they go over here to where Thomas's battery is, roughly in this area.
Yep.
And they're supporting him, and then coming across is Willcox's brigade.
Right.
And then so just wanted to give everybody a
Willcox's
picture in their
brigade,
head.
and Sergeant Carpenter, Alfred P. Carpenter, addresses the issue that we're talking about. They advanced, he's describing the Confederates. Alfred Carpenter, watching this, they advanced in 2 splendid lines, firing as they advanced. The plain was strewed with dead and dying men. The Rebs had advanced their batteries and were hurling death and destruction into the ranks of the retreating men of the 3rd Corps. They were nearing the hill, which if gained, the day was lost to us. They're headed for us. Sergeant John Plummer. If I ever offered a sincere prayer in my life, it was then that we might be saved from defeat. We all felt bad. They're seeing these lines collapsing in front of them, and this upsets them. But we resolved that when we have our chance, we would do our best to retrieve the fortunes of the day. You guys all right? Is there a fire?
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to get water because I forgot to bring it in before the show.
Right here.
No. That's your water. I don't want to take your water.
Well,
I have a bottle there. Go ahead.
I pretty much recovered from the infection I had in my mouth.
That's all right.
That lip fungus is mostly gone.
Go ahead. You go. Keep going. The audience loves you.
Did they see it?
Your dad's filling more water in. Thank you, Court. Okay,
Court, we love you. Thank you.
So he's seeing dead Johnnies and Billies all over that field. We all felt bad by watching our troops retreating, but we resolved when our chance came to do our best to retrieve the fortunes of the day, hardly expecting to come out of the conflict unharmed. So they were already seeing, this is going badly out here. And so that's building, this is the 1st Minnesota from Bull Run, from Fair Oaks. This is the 1st Minnesota from Antietam. And they're looking out there and they're saying, if it's going to come to us, we're going to salvage it.
Thanks, Roger. Thank you. Roger, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll take an old-fashioned.
On rocks.
Neat.
Lieutenant William Loughran, our favorite. The large brigades of Willcox and Barksdale in regular lines moving steadily in the flush of victory and firing on the fugitives. They had reached the low ground and in a few minutes would be at our position. There was no organized force to oppose them except our handful of 262 men.
Alan Funstein, I'm not sure. He wants to know, $15 Australian, it looks like. Thank you very much, sir. Colville was a flutist. Did he play it for his men?
I didn't know he was a flutist.
He did not know that.
Or flautist.
A flautist. A nudist flutist? Was he a nudist?
Sitting on a park bench. No, I do not know. I did not know. I knew he was a lawyer and a newspaper man. That's
Jethro
enough.
Ralph.
Is that enough bio? He was a flutist.
That's good. No, we didn't know that, Alan. Thank you very much.
Now, one of the interesting things about historiography, and Moe deals with this very well, he writes about it directly. He writes about his sources. I found this so edgy. It's one of the first books I read. I'd already passed the exam, so obviously I'd studied this stuff, but now I'm getting deeper in, and he not only quotes the sources, he discusses the sources and the interesting quirks about these guys. And you think you know a story, and that's part of what his book does. You think you know a story, well, guess what? Pick up another page, there's another story. Now make these two things square. So Colville, afterward, writing after the war, so he survives, spoiler alert, writing afterward, creates a picture in which General Hancock is riding around, gobsmacked, at the threat on his line that could split the army in half, and sees the Minnesotans and says, "My God, are these all the men we have here? What regiment is this?" To which someone would turn and say, "Sir, we're the same regiment you just led here 20 minutes ago. What are you drinking? What are you, a goldfish?" But that was Colville's. It thought it was more dramatic.
Yeah.
I don't know who these guys are. Yes, you do.
Yeah. It could have forgotten.
Hancock, in his recollection, will say he rides up and he sees the three regiments, probably the 11th Alabama in the center. We can't be positive, but that seems to be where the ORs give us who's next to who. Okay. 11th Alabama, roughly in the center. The guide regiment, you normally in a brigade in attack will have a guide regiment. And the commander of the 11th Alabama, drum roll please, Colonel Sanders.
Oh my God. Wow. This is where he got to start.
He yelled to the men, "Don't be chicken!" Okay, he got to, it's not. It's almost as good as the Steinway joke coming in with T-shirts in the wagons. Anyway, he sees this flag and he says, "Colonel, do you see those colors?" And Colville says, "Yes." And he says, "Then take them.
Mm-hmm.
Go down that slope and take them." This is Hancock. "I had no alternative but to order the regiment in. We had no force on hand to meet the sudden emergency. Troops had been ordered up." That's pretty much First Corps from the first day, camped out on the Tawnytown Road, Doubleday troops.
Right.
Plus some Third Corps refugees probably, but not. It's messy back there. Troops had been ordered up and were coming on the run, but I saw that in some way 5 minutes must be gained or we were lost. It was fortunate that I found there so grand a body of men as the 1st Minnesota. I knew they must lose heavily, and it caused me pain to give the order for them to advance, but I would have done it if I had known every man would be killed. It was a sacrifice that must be made. You must order the death of the thing you love.
Yeah.
I tell you, Sheriff's good.
No, it's
Sheriff
great.
is good.
Yeah, it's true.
Colville stepped in front of the regiment, according to Private Charles Miller. "Will you go along?" And we shouted together, yes. Colville is in the center of the regiment bearing his sword. Lieutenant Colonel Adams on the right flank, Major Mark Downey on the left flank with D Company. I immediately gave the order, Colville says, "Forward, double quick," and under a galling fire from the enemy, we advanced. So they're shooting already. 1st Minnesota doesn't fire. shoulder right arms. Double quick, but they got to keep that line. If they break up in the line, they may as well start shooting each other. They're together in a line, shoulder arms. There's a fence across the field. I'm not sure where that fence came from. I'm not sure that fence is correct, but it might be because the property lines, the Park Service does know where the property lines are.
Does or doesn't?
They do.
Okay.
They have good maps on whose property, and that's where a fence would be. Kadori property leading to the Fry property or the Hummelbaugh property. I don't know, but there's a fence.
Let's go back to the map.
And it's right across. I don't think it's on there.
Well, I know.
But the point is, it's right in the way of the 1st Minnesota. It's roughly in the area that they run up to and stop.
So the thicket.
Yeah.
In other words,
no. Halfway to the thicket is this fence, and they stop there. They're on the double quick, and they stop.
So somewhere in this area, right? Is this where you're talking? Look up at the map
halfway
there.
to Willard there.
Ralph, look at the map. Is this the area you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, sideways. Go sideways.
Over here.
You can even see a line there.
You can see a line, yeah.
Yeah. No, the horizontal line.
This one.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So it goes like this.
Yes. So they stop there.
All right.
The sergeant, that's his nom de plume. We don't know who the actual writer is.
You also, ladies and gentlemen, have to remove the road in your mind.
Yeah.
This road stays, but this one doesn't. Go ahead.
The more deadly Enfield rifles were directed at us alone. Great heavens, how fast the men fell. It seemed as if every step was over a fallen comrade, yet no man wavers. Every gap in the line is closed up. And bringing down their bayonets, the boys shoulder to shoulder pressed on, without a word, without a cheer, but with silent, desperate determination, stepping firmly forward in unbroken line. He got to that position and ordered bayonets. And that's when they took the bayonet. You don't go running down the whole hill with your bayonets forward. They're in line. Now, bayonets forward, and now they run.
Okay.
And so now that line's going to start to break up a little bit, but now they're running the last stretch into the Kadori thicket.
Got it.
And the bayonets is a thing. 3 times our colors were shot down, and 3 times they rose again, going before us as before.
So Willcox's men are firing as the Minnesotans are coming across the field. So it's not that they meet at the thicket.
And they form 2 ranks, apparently, and the first rank is firing, and when the Minnesotans get into the thicket and cross the Plum Run, they fall back onto the second line. That's described by one of the men. Here's Plummer. I had this a little out of order. That's too bad. John Plummer. We went forward on a run with a yell until about halfway across the second field when we were ordered for some unaccountable reason to us to halt, and the bullets were coming like hailstones and whittling our boys like grain before the sickle. Why don't they let us charge, we cried. Why do they stop us here to be murdered? But the order then is to present bayonets and complete the charge. Dr. Adams is no longer with the regiment as they're charging. He has been hit 5 times. Ankle, leg, arm, grazed across the head. But the one that brought him to the ground is the shot that went through his lung and out his back.
That'll do it.
And that'll stop him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about back pain.
William Loughran, silently, without orders, and almost from the start, double quick, it changed to utmost speed. For an utmost speed lay the only hope that any of us could pass through that storm of lead and strike the enemy. The faster they get down into that thicket and close with the front ranks of Alabama, the better chance they have of not getting killed on the way in. It is estimated that 110 men in the regiment fell in that charge. And 150 of them made it down into the Plum Run thicket.
Okay.
There's no way to know that, but that's an estimate. So you can see almost 50% are already knocked out, 110 out of 262. Sergeant John Plummer, what surprised me most was to see some of the Rebs not 50 yards from us standing out openly and loading and firing as deliberately as if they were in no danger whatsoever. Oh, there's no mistake, but that some of these Rebs are just as brave as it is possible for human beings to be. So some grudging admiration. Private Charles Muller. I begin to see from my friends, but most of them have gone, or were shot down. Then I start to run out of it too. But when I got out on the field, the enemy's flanks had so much advanced, they were only about 50 yards apart, and I had to go through there. Just as I went through, just these guys.
Yeah.
These guys. Just as I went through there, that point, a man from my left did raise his gun and point at me and fired and hit me in my right thigh. But as it happened, did not break the bone.
Lucky.
So I could keep on running up the open field in a zigzag. For God's sakes, he shot in the... Okay, at least it didn't break the bone.
Yeah.
What are you talking...
Maybe it was a graze.
Now, to talk on the battlefield, which these guys don't know. You've talked about this on lots of podcasts. We've talked about it ourselves. You know what's happening in front of you.
Right.
You don't necessarily know what's happening 10 feet away.
Right.
When the Alabamans came to a stop, the leftmost regiment... Oh, don't hold me. 13th Alabama. The leftmost regiment continues to advance and turns onto their flank. Colville will say, I'm getting...
the 9th Alabama?
Perhaps. I'm getting as many guys hit from the side and the rear as from the front. They are turning into our flank. Meanwhile, Willcox's brigade is more to the south, to the left, than the center. And Willcox, the Minnesotans are hitting the 11th Alabama. There's more men to the left and to the right. Here's where other things come into play. Evan Thomas is switching to canister with 6 Napoleons, and he's blasting that Alabama flanking regiment with canister.
Good.
So they're not going to stay out there very long.
Good. Right.
The Harper's Ferry cowards are uncowarding themselves by launching into Barksdale. The 111th is in reserve, and the 2 regiments in the front are doing very well. And the 111th is saying, we're not really needed here. I mean, they don't leave, but they're saying they were thinking that there would be a stop in the attack and they would have to fill in. But the 124th, 125th, they are plowing in.
Yeah.
And the 111th turns to the right and hits Willcox in the flank. So the Minnesotans may not have known it, but they're getting flank support on both sides. And the 19th Maine, which is sent out to protect Weir's battery, turns around, rises up, and 400 some odd rifles open fire into the flanks of the... So there's a lot... The Minnesotans in their suicide charge triggered a reaction from the regiments around them.
Right.
That I believe were spontaneous support. We know who these guys are. We 19th Maine is a sister regiment. There go the Minnesota boys. Oh, my God, this isn't going to go well. Let's go out and help them. Because no orders are going around saying any of this. You have to surmise it because nobody's writing this down.
I'm glad you put that into context because that was going to be my leading question. What is going on as the Minnesotans are going forward?
Yeah.
Because it's not happening in a vacuum. They are getting support, but it's so...
Well, they're catching
confused.
bullets wholesale.
Yeah.
And now a final indignity... To flip back to the gunfight at the Peach Orchard program, the Peach Orchard line has been broken, and Colonel Edward Porter Alexander has advanced his big artillery battalion of 24 guns from Warfield Ridge up to the Peach Orchard. They've deployed the 24 guns on a line from the Peach Orchard out to what we call U.S. Avenue today, the Trossel Lane, and they are looking for targets. Wherever they see a mass of blue, they start shooting at it. And they see the 1st Minnesota making that charge, and they start shooting at them. Now it's getting dark. It's twilight. So they're firing at what they can see. Now, how can I say this so cocksure? Yes, they're getting artillery because the 2 most famous casualties, Colonel William Colville and Isaac Taylor, are both hit by artillery shells. They're not hit by bullet fire. Colville gets into the thicket, which we don't know how thick it is. Thicket. Oh, that was a pun almost.
Thick it is.
I didn't
Come
mean
on,
it.
folks.
I swear to God, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Because when I first started coming to Gettysburg, that was a forest.
Yeah.
The thicket had grown up into a line of trees.
Right.
And part of the management restoration plan, they took that down. But now they're reestablishing the thicket by what did you think it looked like?
Right.
What do we think we should plant down here? So we're not entirely, I think the thicket was not as thick as it is now, where you cannot walk through that thing in the summer.
No.
Right.
No.
Without getting Lyme disease.
I don't think it was that bad. Well, Lyme disease you're going to get anywhere. Yeah, but
It's true. It's a good point.
At McDonald's in line long enough, you can have Lyme disease.
I didn't know that.
Damn tickets for you. But anyway, never mind the ticks.
Put ticks in their burgers, I heard.
So Alexander is firing at everything, and this gives us something about the time of day. Coville. Let me first describing the attack. By the time the gully was reached, the fire was delivered into the backs of the first. The fire was returned by 1 or 2 companies on our right, and the remainder of the line firing to the rebels in front. It was the flank fire which wrought ruin to the ranks of the Minnesota Regiment and continued for what seemed like an endless time. Had it been daylight, not a man could have escaped death, wounds, or capture. So it's getting twilight. This attack is happening late in the day. And here now he describes himself. Then came a shock like a sledgehammer on my backbone between my shoulders. As I struck the ground, I rolled over into the gully. He rolled over. Plum Run, if you get down there, it has dug itself a ditch that's about 2 or 3 feet deep that the water goes through. He fell into that ditch. I rolled into it and listened, among other things, to the bullets zipping along the ground and thought how fortunate for me to be in the gully.
Yeah, really.
I need not describe the rest of it. I saw it grow dark, and then it became quiet. I saw the stars shining overhead. So he's lying there wounded, and it's now stars are out. So this is how, I guess maybe we should have mentioned that at the beginning. This is really late in the day.
Right.
This attack.
So all the stuff that's going on with Sickles and everything. This is as it's coming to an end.
The sun is already gone, and it's steadily getting darker when this attack.
If you want, Ralph, I'll call your attention again to the monitor there. And here's David Geister's depiction from up above of this action. So I was right. It was the 9th Alabama that's making the flanking move. Notice he's got the fence line here, all torn down. Okay. And Colonel Colville, Colonel Adams, 1st Minnesota. So you got, quite a bit of Confederates up against you there. But here's the question. You touched on Willard's brigade before, the Harper's Ferry Cowards, right? I want to, are they down? They're down there first?
They move behind the 1st Minnesota while it's standing still.
Right.
But then they advance to attack the Mississippians. They move out before.
So let me just I want to be very particular about this, just for the sake of people listening and putting this in their head. So the 1st Minnesota is sent down to support Thomas.
Yeah.
Willard's brigade is still
in a big gap in the line.
Right. Willard's brigade is not yet down there.
Right.
Willard's brigade is later moved down there as it seems that there's a big threat coming as Humphreys
they moved all the way to basically the George Weichert farm.
Right. Mm-hmm. So they're going to go past the Pennsylvania. If we're going to put...
Oh, yeah.
If we're going to put...
they're past Father Corby.
Right. If we're putting the 1st Minnesota at Pennsylvania Monument...
Yeah.
Right. They're going down by the Weichert farm, like you say, Father Corby and everything like that. In that field there where, was it Malbone Watson's...
No. Don't go there. Just skip it.
Okay.
Skip Malbone.
No, I'm not getting into Malbone, but where the monument and battery is today.
Where the monument is.
We're not going to...
The battery wasn't there, but the monument
covered that in some other episode before. But
that matters because, Willard goes in with 4 regiments.
Right.
McGill, the Plum Run line, Malbone, Watson, and the rest of them are on the other side of present-day U.S. Avenue.
Right.
Because the 39th New York detaches and goes through the woods and attacks to recover the captured batteries.
Right.
So the 39th is off. 124, 125 are the front attacking regiments. 111th is in reserve. They go deep enough into the Cadore thicket. They're practically as far as the Trossel Farm, and the 111th, I don't want to put this as facetiously as it's going to sound, is looking for something to do. They're in the reserve behind, and they see the 1st Minnesota And they said, well, we can help. Look at those guys. Let's go hit them.
So that's where I'm heading. So the 1st Minnesota, because we hear about their charge and, stop Willcox and everything like that. But eventually the 111th.
Well, part of what they stopped them for is to set them up for flanking attacks. It's just, it's not like it was planned that way.
Yeah,
but it happened that way.
But it works that way.
Yeah. You stopped them, and now that they're stopped, and you know what happens when you're stopped on a battlefield? Bad thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you got to keep moving. So moving.
Willard's brigade, the bulk of it is to the left of the 1st Minnesota.
Oh, the entire brigade is to the left.
Okay, the entire brigade is to the left, and then the 111th is in reserve to the left rear of...
Sort of behind them.
Sort of, but to the left.
But now wheels oblique to the right to join. I mean, I don't know if they ever made contact with the 1st Minnesota, but they made contact with the Alabamans.
Yeah.
Because remember I said the Alabama brigade is a little disproportionately off to the Minnesotans' left.
Yes. To their left or to their right?
To their left. The bulk of the brigade would be going right around the 1st Minnesota, or a big piece of the brigade,
okay.
And the 111th is going to hit them.
Okay.
On the other side, where that regiment was flanking the 1st Minnesota, they're taking canister from Evans.
And
then the 19th
Thomas.
And then Thomas, Evans. And then the 19th Maine wails in. I mean, they don't attack bayonets or anything, but they're within rifle range.
Yeah.
And so they're firing right down the slope.
Okay.
And so, all of a sudden now they're getting attacked by what almost amounts to a brigade-sized force. And remember, Willcox isn't.
Yeah.
We don't know how many he lost. He loses 50% on the day. So he may be getting, by the time the 111th and the 19th Maine are engaged, he may be on a 1-to-1 basis now. And that's a good reason to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Floridians coming in on his left flank don't.
Mm-hmm.
Lang's brigade, under the command of Lang, they call it Perry's brigade, and that's the problem because Perry's not there, and they don't get past the Emmitsburg Road.
Right.
And so...
but that's a story for another day.
William Loughran, the regiment, had stopped the enemy and held back its mighty force and saved the position. But what a sacrifice. Nearly every officer was dead or lay weltering with bloody wounds. Our gallant colonel and every field officer among them. They get back up to the crest, and Captain Nathan Messick, who's a story by himself, Roy Frampton has said this is his favorite guy. He goes home on furlough to Minnesota, and I don't know how they make a diagnosis back then, but he is diagnosed with hepatitis. Oh. His liver is failing, and it's untreatable.
Go ahead, Tad. We got Messick right here.
So he's this guy's days are numbered by hepatitis. Back in Minnesota, what does he do? Gets back on a train, returns to the regiment.
And
he's the highest ranking officer surviving, rallying the flag at the top of the ridge, and 47 men come back.
47 out of 200, and what'd you say?
260. Well, not so fast with the numbers. We're going to talk about the numbers.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the numbers.
All right.
All of you at home, don't hang up now, or hang up or turn off. Don't switch over to watch.
You got to stick around for the questions.
Stick around. You got to stick around for the numbers because this is important. This is an important Civil War lesson to potential battlefield guides, to all sorts of historians. Easy with the numbers. Right. And the 1st Minnesota is a test case for that. But so Messick is the commander. According to Loughran, this is important, Judge Loughran, 262 made the charge, 252 killed and wounded. 215 killed and wounded. 262 charged, 215 killed and wounded, 47 survivors. All the field officers, Lewis Miller, Joseph Perriam, and Waldo Farrar, all captains and lieutenants, are the only ones killed. The other field officers are on their feet. What Hancock had given us to do was done thoroughly. The annals of war contain no parallel to this charge. Authentic history has no record with which it can be compared. Patrick Henry Taylor can't find Isaac.
Uh-oh.
He finds Coville. I help our colonel off the field, but fail to find my brother, who I suppose is killed. I rejoined the regiment and lie down in the moonlight, rather sorrowful. Where is Isaac?
Ugh. You imagine?
Read this stuff. It's just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
July 3rd, about 8:30 in the morning, Mr. Snow of company tells me he thinks he found my brother. And I accompany him to the spot, and I find my dear brother dead.
Oh.
A shell struck him on top of his head and passed out through his back, cutting his belt in two.
Oh, my God.
The poor fellow did not know it hit him.
Thank God.
As we laid him down, I remarked, well, Isaac, all I can give you is a soldier's grave. I was the only one to weep over it.
Ugh.
So 47 guys left on their feet. But remember, C Company had been sent as provost guard. Did I maybe remember? Maybe I forgot to mention it. An F Company was sent out.
Yeah.
Under Wilson Farrell was sent out. Well, they come back now.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you about that.
So the regiment now comes back to a strength of roughly 100. And they move up with the rest of the brigade to the position where their obelisk monument is, about 100 yards to the right of the Gibbon black walnut tree of the beginning of the stone wall. They're there with the Massachusetts monuments, and they have the tallest obelisk between Hancock Avenue and the copse of trees. So it's except for the U.S. regulars, ridiculous thing. but among the regimental monuments, I should say, so it's easy to pick out.
Yeah. The U.S. regulars one is the large obelisk that was put up by Congress, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's where they will fight from.
Okay.
So when the Pickett's Charge breakthrough.
So now we're on day 3.
Day 3. The Pickett's Charge breakthrough, the 19th Massachusetts will countercharge under the command of Major Edward Rice, charging into the breakthrough. Our 2 regiments were ordered forward to the clump of trees. The advance was rapidly thinned by the hostile fire on our flank and in the clump of trees as we came in line. Captain Farrell of the 1st Minnesota with his company came in on my left. As we greeted each other, he received his death wound and fell in front of his men, who now began firing. I think they were over the wall.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
And so they'll have 17 killed and wounded in the fighting on July 3rd, including Nathan Messick and Wilson Farrell.
So, okay.
They also have 2 medals of honor. Private Marshal Sherman will capture the flag of the 28th Virginia, and Corporal Henry O'Brien, who is carrying the flag of the 1st Minnesota, is shot through the hand. A second bullet hits the staff and breaks it in half, and he charges with the flag in his other hand. And they said, okay, give that one guy, give him a medal.
Yeah.
And so how many medals of honor are awarded for the attack on July 2nd? That'd be none.
Wow.
And then because it's all about July 3rd and Pickett's Charge.
Yeah.
You know?
So, okay, let me just, I got to pause you there for a second, because we kind of blended into July 3rd rather quickly. And you mentioned Company F and Company C, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So after...
C stayed in Provost Guard. They sent some men back, but he needed Provost Guard, so they stayed in Provost Guard. But Company F, which was on the skirmish line, completely rejoined and actually had more guys in it, like 60 guys, than the survivors of the whole rest of the regiment.
Right. So that's my question is when everybody returns, that is going to return, that brings them up to what, like 100 something?
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. Okay.
Let's talk about math.
Good luck.
We love math.
Well, you want to take calls?
Oh, I said, let's talk about math. He says, okay, to the phone.
Yes.
We can get to math, but
we like history. We're not good at it.
No. I mean, yes, you're right, Court. We don't like numbers, but
it's a natural place to make a break.
Yeah, let's make a break right here. Okay, we've got the great.
You answer the questions. I'm going to go outside for a smoke.
We got the one, the only 6 questions, Lance. Hello, Michael. How are you doing today, my friend?
Good. Well, good evening. You sent out the call out there to call people to call in to the show to say how great Ralph is, and I'm here to say how great Ralph is.
Oh, sure.
So,
hey, Mike, I can't come up with 2 questions. You're the man. You're the man.
But to go off of what Ralph was really, I have no questions because he answered all the ones I had, and through his great narrative there. But the thing that I have here is Cadmus Willcox's official report, in that he says that once they clear the Emmitsburg Road, he was worried about the artillery behind it.
Yes.
And with the day fading, he's advancing with his men, and then he gets hit with a fresh infantry attack, which includes that 1st Minnesota.
Right.
And so I think the term is fearing for the safety of my command.
Yeah.
I ordered a withdrawal. And because he had no soldiers behind him backing him up.
Yeah.
So the 1st Minnesota just hitting him and triggering all of that.
Well, that's Evan Thomas's battery he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. You know. And so he's worried about that. That's the thing that he's concerned about. And so realizing he has no support behind him, he goes, we're done here.
Yeah.
And so, he orders a withdrawal. So the 1st Minnesota doing what they did was huge because it stopped Willcox in his tracks.
Yep. At a gap.
And that, yep. And that was it.
It accomplished the goal.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, and one last question. I just have one question after you get through the math section of the episode. Why was Nathan Messick buried in the National Cemetery, and why didn't anyone come and claim him to bury him back in Minnesota or wherever he was from?
Why is anyone buried in the National Cemetery? I mean, we know that the 2 highest ranking officers specifically said they wanted to be buried with the men, which is why we have very few commissioned officers buried in the National Cemetery. Why did they not send Messick home? I don't know.
Okay.
Roy Frampton might know about that. It might be in a book because he has a picture of Messick in the book. Roy has said many times Nathan Messick is his heroic guy in terms of this is a guy who would not have needed to apologize to anyone for staying home, being with his kids, and slowly dying. Returns to the regiment.
Right.
Yeah, so did he? Is there a letter where he said, bury me here? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't have any. I've never run into anything. And the Minnesota, he always strikes me when I ever go to the Minnesota plot. There he is. You know,
Mike brought up the cemetery. So let me jump to the back to get this one story out. Is that for? I may only be Charlie and Roy, Charlie Fennell and Roy Frampton and others may be shaking their heads at home saying, "Oh God, he doesn't know anything."
That's right. They're not listening.
I did not know until a few months ago that we knew where Isaac Taylor was. Isaac Taylor, his brother put a headstone that he wrote, head plank that he wrote in the diary. Isaac Taylor was an accomplished diarist. Patrick Henry Taylor took the diary and finished. The owner of this diary was killed yesterday, July 2nd. Don't ask me word for word. It is
right.
And then he writes the stone. 1st Minnesota Volunteers, I.L. Taylor, July 2, 1863, and inscribed by Sergeant P.H. Taylor. They lost that. And they don't bury these guys literally where they lay. They kind of, okay, let's bury them over there. And so they're carrying bodies from different units to a burying place.
Right.
And Parsons' battery, Hexamer's battery, but I don't, Captain Hexamer was out. 1st New Jersey Battery A. Those are the cannons you walk through to get up to the Pennsylvania Monument that nobody ever looks at.
Nobody stops at.
Right. And they were there before the Pennsylvania Monument. You know what I mean? So, late comers. But Parsons' battery has 2 men killed. And they are buried. And Taylor is buried near them.
Okay. Right, so there's
and Dr. James Christian, who I think last year completed this study profiling 2,000 burials in the National Cemetery, and he finds Isaac Taylor in the New Jersey section next to the two guys who were killed in Parsons Battery.
Wow.
By name, like he's named there?
Wow.
It's only his initials, ILT.
Really?
Yeah, you go over to the New Jersey
Really?
section there. I mean, I don't know how people can see that, but the two guys,
Did you send me that picture?
Cutter and Creasel, I didn't. I just used it
Damn
for
it,
my
Ralph.
notes. And right next to it, the I is almost completely erased.
Like
you have
worn
to
away?
you have to wait till it's raining. ILT.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And he figured out ILT. That's Taylor.
Because there's nobody in the New Jersey regiment or
No.
battery
Right.
with those initials.
Because the thought was that they lost that board and that Taylor rested in the Minnesota section under an unknown.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
And now we know he's not. He's in the New Jersey section.
What are there only
where
like?
he's far better off.
What are there like what 50, 52 in the Minnesota section?
Yeah.
Which
It's
was- which is it?
not even that many. I'm not sure because they do send some of them home.
Okay.
There's 58 confirmed dead and died in hospital.
But how many are buried there today?
I'm not positive.
Mike, do you know?
It's not
So the
58.
stone says 52.
52.
The
That's
stone
what I
says
thought.
52.
And
Yeah.
then, but who's in that Isaac Taylor plot?
Wow.
We will never know.
Could it be Buster Kilrain?
It might be Buster Kilrain, or at least his bloody armpit.
Could it be Buster Kilrain? Math time.
All right, math time, and then we got another call.
Okay.
Thank you,
No,
Mike.
I hate to be a math
Thank
nerd,
you.
Have a good one.
but this was my line. Oh, you want to get other calls first?
Well, we got
before
one
lose
more.
all
Might
the
as well
list?
let him out.
Yeah, let
Yeah.
him out so that the
Okay.
people who
Been
hate
sitting
math
here
can
for
all
11
leave.
minutes. I believe this is our buddy from Down Under, Grant. Grant, you're on the air, sir.
Darn it, Matt, don't call me Grant.
What shall I call you?
What, do we don't call him
Lawrence.
Sir, whatever
Darn
you
it,
want.
Tam! Don't
you-
call me Larry.
Can you flush the toilet? We want to see it going in the wrong direction.
I'd just like
Got
to
him.
take this.
not a no.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Ralph for doing such a wonderful job. It's a very difficult task as a guest, having to do the hosting duty and the guest duty at the same time. But you've done well.
I see your point.
And I think I love your accent. I think it's you are a New Jersey would love to have you as a representative of their state. The guy opposite you, not so much, but it's okay.
Launching insults from down under.
No, not to you. I
you
have
on?
the utmost respect
Come on,
for you,
Graham.
Ralph. I have the utmost. Yeah, sorry. I have two questions. To sort of latch on to what Six Questions was saying. With Caddy Willcox, when did he learn that he had been turned back by only a regiment-sized force? Was it late, just after the war, or soon after, or?
Well, I don't think he would have ever actually accepted that concept because, they're not holding up signs that say 1st Regiment, Minnesota.
The flag.
He is, well, the flag, but he can't read the flag.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're not having ID signs like the Boy Scouts at JFK, walking in, Troop 114.
The Hare Krishnas.
Yes, we don't know which. So he's got the 111th coming out of the twilight to his right. He's got these 1st Minnesotas in front of him. He's got this 6th battery of Napoleons, which he's already had, up to here with Napoleon canister.
Right.
And here's another damn battery up on the hill. Where did they come from? And then the 19th Maine opens fire. He's got as many rifles at that point shooting at him as he has shooting back. So I don't know that the one regiment thing ever really settled in with him. That being said, I'm not sure I've read a lot about Willcox's post-war writings. I'm maybe a shortcoming. I don't know what he wrote after the war about this attack. So I defer to those who might, but I would be surprised if he thought he was only being hit by one regiment, because when he was in the heat of the fire and called everybody to get the hell out, he's got a lot of rifles at him and a battery of canister.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered or deflected your question.
I'll just get my gear out.
What I want to know is,
I only have one other question.
yeah,
Who's he talking to? Yeah, who's Grant talking to? What are you doing, Grant?
I'm working.
Yeah.
Sorry, and the other thing, Ralph.
yes.
Do you think the 1st Minnesota charge was as an important event as the Peach Orchard fight? Was it, or which would you think was
they're
the
all
most,
they're all
important?
interconnected. I mean, if the Confederates break through Freeman and Gilvery's artillery line, there's open space behind them.
Yeah.
If the Georgians break through Caldwell's division at the wheat field, they're rolling up the flank of Cemetery Ridge. There's a dozen, well, maybe not a dozen, but there's a handful of places where a Confederate breakthrough could be critical, a critical injury to the Army of the Potomac.
Yeah.
All of that being said, and then we boil back to the fight on Little Round Top. What if they got Little Round? What would happen? I think the 6th Corps might have something to say about Little Round. Well, the 6th Corps might have something to say about a lot. You know, Sedgwick, throughout his career, is a brawler. And at Chancellorsville, he kind of screwed the pooch. He got overreacted to a flanking attack from Jubal Early's division, and he hopped it back over the river when, in fact, he was in a position to attack Lee right in the rear and end the war. So Sedgwick, that's why he was not legitimately considered for overall Army command, because of what he did at Chancellorsville. But you follow his career, and he's a brawler. And he would have gotten his boys into position on Cemetery Ridge, and they would have chased Cadmus Willcox all the way back to Muscle Shoals. But they just didn't get there in time, and I think they were a bit tired too.
Yeah, sure.
But you know,
from the rear.
Yeah. So that in reality, now nobody knows this, but in reality, we know that the 6th Corps is arriving, and to point out, the New Jersey's at the tip of the spear. It's the New Jersey Brigade that leads the 6th Corps in. Right. They lead their fighting brigade in first,
and they just go camping in the woods.
They end up doing that, yes. And not what they meant, but then they saw that poison ivy. And they go, come.
It's like, come on.
This is why we left New Jersey, to get away from this. No,
we're teasing our native soil.
If Willcox had broken through that piece of the line, well, for one thing, he's not being supported. He has the same problem Rand's Wright complains about, that he broke through the line, which he didn't. But he claims he broke through the line, but he had no support. Well, Willcox isn't really getting any support either. So had he crossed the crest of Cemetery Ridge and gotten within sight of Tawnytown Road, how long could he have stayed there? They become what-ifs that will drive you nuts up here. That will just drive you, they'll just drive you nuts. What if a koala was a kangaroo, for Pete's sake? That's what I mean. What would you have in the zoo? So those questions will drive you out of your mind, and sometimes it's better not to even ask them.
And Ralph,
I hope Grant doesn't quit now.
Last question.
Okay.
This is probably a quick answer. How soon did the media and the army and the people realize what the Minnesota boys had done? Like, how soon after the battle did it become a famous thing?
That's a tough one. The reports, the official reports, who reads them? They're up the chain of military command. It is really Fox's regimental losses that vaults the 1st Minnesota into national prominence and puts pressure on the rest of Minnesota to recognize this regiment. I'm looking for the Fox. I think I gave them to you, Matt, the Fox's pages. But anyway, we showed them before. But Fox's regimental history, which
I don't have,
your sophisticated Civil War followers, there it is. This came out in 1889, and this is the page listing regiments by proportionate casualties by action. And number 1 is the 1st Minnesota, and that got a lot of attention, and that really built the momentum in Minnesota for them to put up a monument. By the way, the outcome of all of these people, or do we want to go to the math first? Let's do math or outcome. Let's do the math.
All right, let's do Matt. Grant, is that it? Do you have anything else that you would like to
Stay tuned
bore us
here,
with?
Grant. This is interesting nerd stuff.
Thank you, sir, and Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grant.
Now, part of what I had, you got like a Jimmy Kimmel, Matt Damon thing going on here with him.
Yeah. I'm effing
All right.
Grant O'Brien. Real quick though, Ralph, I've got to keep my promise here. Although I think this person is getting political.
Yeah.
Keeper of the Cool with an $11 thing, and we try to not be political here, but he's paying, and I have to live up to it.
We handle it. We can
Uncle Ralph, do you think the boys from the 1st would be proud of the sacrifice given what Minnesota has turned into today? Proud of their sacrifice given what Minnesota has turned into today?
I think they would be very proud. I think Minnesota's pretty cool. They got the biggest mall in the United States. What else could you possibly ask for?
I mean, and that's really what they were fighting for.
Yeah.
Was the mall.
Retail.
Of all malls.
Retail opportunities.
Yeah. That's really true.
And you've got to secure that border with Canada.
Yeah. Dearest mother.
I mean, if we go
I think that when this war is over, someday we might have shopping malls. Shopping malls galore.
We go to we go after that first we go after that 51st state. 3rd Armored Division is going up through Minnesota into the plains. That's the way they're going in.
That's right. They always called it the gateway to Canada.
And so
that's on their license plate.
And I'll also add this as a non-political political. Anybody who has issues with Minneapolis should go visit. Maybe not in March, but it's
not during riot
season.
It's
a lovely city.
Yes,
it has a great cultural heritage.
I have a friend who lives there.
The biggest minority group in Minnesota are American Indians. I'm sorry, Native American, Indigenous, First Peoples.
Whatever.
Yeah,
whatever they're supposed to be called.
It's a cool. I was only there for a short time, but it's a cool city, and news is news.
I've never been, but I've always wanted to visit that region of the country, and I haven't yet. But I mean,
I'm saying that the ICE agents that caused all the kerfuffle up there went to Minnesota because it's not New York. Mm-hmm. Okay, because if they showed up in New York, they'd be fighting remnants of body armor under the D train. Okay, it just wouldn't be happening. Yeah. We got subways. That's where we hide bodies, including yours.
It's true. And the Meadowlands. Well, the Meadowlands isn't as easy to hide bodies in anymore. But at one time,
nothing beats the subway.
Well, you still got the Pine Barrens. They could always take them down to the Pine Barrens.
They get fined eventually.
That's true.
I used to frequent a place in Minnesota called Lake Wobegon.
Me too.
Yeah, it was always quiet. Always quiet.
Always quiet.
And all the children were above average.
They were. Yeah, they were.
The thing is that in the Pinelands and anywhere else, a dead body's going to smell. In the New York subway, no one.
You can't tell the difference.
Right.
That's right.
The smell's there. It's pre-smelled.
David Geister says, proud Minneapolis resident here. Love my city.
Yeah.
So he's from there. Yeah. Okay.
I will also say something else if I can. Learning this growing up in Queens.
Yes.
Also not to be political.
Okay.
When a cop tells you to do something, you freaking do it.
You just do it.
You just do it.
Tad learned that lesson. That's as far as I'm going to say.
You worry
Tad.
about your civil liberties tomorrow. A cop tells you to do something, you do it.
You take it up with the judge.
In Queens, there were a lot of kids who were bad.
Yeah.
The cop doesn't know which one you are.
Right.
So
all I know is I watch police body cam videos kind of incessantly
and I
now.
watched some of those videos, and the guy with the cell phone chasing after two guys carrying, what were they, M4 automatics in body armor.
And they said,
well, that's the guy who got shot. And they're telling him, will you step back? Step back.
Yeah, step back. Right. Yeah, listen to the guy with the gun.
Listen to what cops tell you to do something, you do it. Sorry, not to be.
That's okay. That's okay. We lost half our audience.
Math.
And let's get to math because that really gains.
Let's go to this lovely monument.
Listeners.
By the way,
they're talking about math on Addressing Gettysburg. Tune in.
I was disappointed to learn from Ed Guy, a much more experienced and skilled guide than I am, that the first Minnesota monument is an actual person named Stephen Smith.
Can we talk about the monument real quick?
I thought this was Patrick Henry. I thought that because he looks just like him.
Yeah, not Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death.
No, Patrick Henry Taylor.
Right.
The brother of the dead, because he charged down that slope holding that bayonet. And I look at the picture of Patrick Henry Taylor and I say it's him.
Tad was looking at a picture of Jonathan Taylor Thomas before. Okay, so let's go to.
Too young to know who that is.
I know. Let's go now. I want to show you guys here. This is, of course, the first Minnesota monument depicting. I guess.
Don't move yet. You're going to keep this there for a second.
For a second,
the big black plaque.
Yes.
You have to go up and read it. All my Civil War nerds. Go up and read it.
There you go. Can you read it, folks?
No, not here.
Oh.
6 questions. We'll skip work tomorrow and head right to that spot.
I'm sure he's already read it.
The plaque.
Sure he's already read it.
Not until he hears from they're going to go back and reread it.
Well,
He's on his way there now.
Give me the guy's name up top there again.
Well, Jacob Fjeld is the sculptor.
What? No, the man.
Ed Guy says that it was modeled on a soldier from the regiment named Stephen Smith.
Okay, now.
But I stand there with a picture of Patrick Henry Taylor, and I look up and I say, that's him.
All right, now.
But
that was not the, you know this, that was not the original design.
All right, the original design was freaky.
This is the original design here, ladies and gentlemen, and I think, I wish they had kept this. It is a Minnesota man bayoneting... What is that? A snake?
Yeah.
A dragon.
Snake, a dragon of secession.
Yeah.
Secession dragon.
Secession. They did a thing at Gettysburg. It even influenced the equestrians. Don't go over the top.
Yeah.
Don't be operatic.
That's too bad.
But that's going to become funny after a while. Oh, let's go see the guy killing the dragon.
No more funny than Chief Tamminen standing out there in front of his teepee that they didn't live in.
I think they might say that was a little strange. I think these guys, and so, Gettysburg, the statuary artwork is a little more dignified.
Chief Tamminen might not have been strange to that generation because they had a better understanding of history. It was closer in that time. Yeah. But now it looks ridiculous because people think Native Americans fought here. Mm-hmm. And they go, I didn't know Indians fought here. They had a whole Indian regiment. And I'm not mocking people that think that. I'm just saying.
Regiment.
Huh? Yeah, but they don't know what that is. Well, they don't know what that is.
You tell them.
Well, not me. I'm not a licensed guy.
Now, what I do is when I have U.S. Navy personnel or veterans on the tour, throughout the entire tour, I will tell them, when we get up toward the angle, I will show you the naval monument. And they can't believe there's a naval monument. And we drive up to Tammany, and I point to the naval, and none of them thinks it's funny. You're the first one to laugh. They never think it's funny. And my wife says, why do you keep telling them that? You know how much money that's cost you in tips? They're like, we're about to give this guy $20, but not now. You think that's funny? Look at the naval monument. How about we get out of the car and leave you here, you jerk? Yeah, so that hasn't worked, but I keep trying. The naval
you can walk
monument.
from the visitor center to here, right?
I have done it many times.
All right, listen, it's almost 11 o'clock. So where do you want to go? And then we got to take a break and come back and get our questions in.
Math. He's been trying to do math for the last 40 minutes.
Let's do math.
Math.
That
monument. Go read the plaque.
Okay.
262 made the attack, 215 killed and wounded. That's more than 85% wrong.
Whoa.
I mean, it's engraved in bronze.
Now, how are they wrong?
Just do the math right there.
I can't do that.
Well, I can, and I did it on a spreadsheet.
And it's wrong?
Yeah, it's 82%. It's not 85%.
All right, I was going to say, because the number we use now is 82.
It's a small difference, but we're off to the races.
So they're rounding up.
Yeah.
I mean, they're rounding up, Ralph.
No, they rounded down. Oh, okay.
No, they rounded up.
Fine. Okay, you're going to defend bad math. Okay, fine.
I've been doing it my whole life.
Well, let's go into the National Cemetery, okay? Where the urn says the regiment had 330 men and 232 were casualties, 70%. And that's on the urn in the cemetery, the oldest monument in the park.
Put up closest to the event.
Right, which apparently the guys who put up the state memorial 30 years later didn't go up there to read. And if they did, they made no effort to reconcile the numbers.
But who put the first one up? Veterans?
The urn?
Yes.
I don't know. Not veterans.
Not veterans.
Not veterans. A tribute from the state of Minnesota.
That's from the state.
I don't know who did it.
So then where
Now, Richard Moe, my friend, if you read Moe's book, he sticks to the 262-215 number, which comes from our friend Lieutenant William Loughran.
Okay.
262 made the charge, 215 fell. And then Moe has a footnote, which no one ever reads the footnotes, and he says in this huge footnote, look, these numbers might not be right. I just don't want to have 12 numbers in the book, but here's the other numbers in case you nerds actually want to try to figure this out, because no one ever will.
Right.
But there's a message in there. So Moe sticks to the 1993 numbers that William Loughran reported in an article. Okay, and it comes from the official records. Winona University, that's in Minnesota, Robert Menard became an archive rat, looked up every guy who enlisted and what happened, where they could be found after the war, and he concluded that only 179 fell, not 215. Brian Lehan, retired newsman, became a historian, does his own study in 2002, saying 289 made the charge, not 262, and therefore the percentage of losses 215 is not 82, it's 74. Now, in Fox's list of proportions, you drop from number 1 to like number 30. And remember, being on number 1 is what got them all the attention in the first place. Right. Where did Loughran get the number from? He got it from Fox's 1889 regimental losses. So I'm digging into Fox. And this is what I did when I was in the Treasury. I had spreadsheet accounts for interest earnings and mortgage,
Fascinating.
My agency issued $1.3 billion in bonds. Right. And we had to keep track of the trust funds our money went into, the interest it earned, and I had to make these reports. So, not that I was, Einstein, who lived up the block from us.
It's comforting to know that you weren't an Einstein with that.
Fox did the math. Okay. The first Minnesota June 30th payroll, solid number, 385. Mm-hmm. Army of the Potomac, on average, had 15% fewer soldiers at Gettysburg than the June 30th payroll. Some guys may have been getting payroll in a hospital bed. Mm-hmm. Some guys may have been getting payroll and they went on special assignment. Mm-hmm. So there is an 85% proportion. The guys who got paid on June 30th, 85% of them, that's the Army. I don't know if it was from 110,000 and 95. So that's the math.
Okay.
Yep. So 385 times 85% is 327. 327 divided by 10 companies is 33 guys per company. Mm-hmm. And Fox calculated that 32.7 guys times 8 companies is 262 men.
Right, because you're removing.
And what do I have written right there?
C, a company F.
You can't do that.
You can't do that. Why can't you do that?
Because it doesn't happen to every 600 regiments. They don't all decline by 15%. Just because the Army across the board declined by 15%. There's some regiments that are at full strength and others that are at half strength and all points in between.
That's what's so tricky.
It's not that tricky.
It's tricky, Ralph, if you're not a math person.
Okay.
It's tricky. Well, no. What's tricky is
15% of Pennsylvania moves
Ralph.
to Ohio.
Yes.
What percentage from Adams County moved to Ohio?
15%. Everybody knows that.
Because they love Gettysburg. That's the point.
No, but listen, here's what I'm saying is that everybody, if you go and you look at how many guys got paid on the 30th, right? Yeah. You just made a great point. They're not all in the ranks.
Right.
But they're in the regiment. They're in the service.
But they're not at Gettysburg the charge.
They're in the hospital. Right. They're on, like they're.
And my point with all of this.
Wait. But what I'm saying is you can't look at the 30th and say that when the battle started on the 1st, these guys had that same number in the field because of those reasons. And so that's why I'm saying it's tricky, is because somebody who doesn't think through like that, right? They just see that number. They go, oh, well, how much are you going to lose overnight?
We're going to take this whole list and subtract 15% from it, and that's the number of guys who are at Gettysburg.
No. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is you don't know. You have to look at each regiment and figure that out.
And my point in this is a famous regiment.
Right.
Okay. Up until Michael Shara, this is the famous regiment. This is a regiment gets a lot of attention. Minnesota comes here, puts the largest monument on the battlefield to a regiment. Okay. Minnesota chief of staff to the U.S. Senator from Minnesota writes the definitive regimental history. This is a big, and they can't figure out the number. because we don't know. And anybody who stands up on the battlefield and says, and now the 19th Maine with 417 guys, you don't know.
Right.
The official records, which is what the War Department used to populate the battlefield brigade signs, the official records are as wrong as they are right.
How many guys in each regiment passed out from heat stroke on the way here or died?
How many got lost?
How many got lost? How many ran away?
How many decided to, go to the visitor center?
With the air conditioning. I would. Yeah, no, there's a lot. There's a lot to it. And you mentioned
anybody gets into numbers.
Yes.
Anybody who runs an order or battle where he gives you precise numbers. I remember one of them. There's a book I will not go name where they did a spreadsheet, calculated, and then just rejiggered the spreadsheet 100 different ways and printed it as a book. And a lot of people live on this book. And they will, and there are 3 of the South Carolina regiments, I think it's South Carolina, have exactly 303 men. 3 regiments. And I went to an old statistics professor that I had at college, probabilities, who had to study probabilities and statistics. And he said the odds of that happening are 1 in 10 million. That just can't be correct.
Right.
And so we assign. So the lesson for the 1st Minnesota with the math error right on the bronze is don't ever nail down a number. That's the lesson, children, boys and girls. When you go out to Gettysburg, go out to the 154th. The famous. Did I get the number right? Where's Michael Lentz when you need him?
154th?
Yeah. The regiment that got overrun and 90% prisoners up on the first day.
155th?
No, 150. Wasn't
155th PA?
Where are we talking? New York? New York. Oh.
Yeah. The Amos Humiston regiment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the monument says 1 guy dead.
Mm-hmm. 1 guy dead. The rest were captured.
Well, Mark Dunkelman find 12 guys dead. They're in the painting. The guy who did the painting and did the research, he found 12 guys and they're in the painting. Okay. If you go stand in front of the painting, everybody who's looking at you is dead.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
It's creepy is what it is.
Yeah.
Anyone who's looking straight out at you is dead.
You hear that, folks? You heard it here second. You go to that mural, everybody who's looking at you is dead.
And there's 12 of them.
I'm sure Mark said it when he was on the show.
Even though the monument, I'm sure he did. Even though the monument says 1 dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do their best. I don't mean to sound critical of the War Department. The guys who put together the official records, what a Herculean task.
Right.
They're all heroes to us historians, but don't ever nail down a number and say, yes, the Iron Brigade went into action with 1,373 men plus 11 dogs. No, we don't know.
No, we don't.
And Fox does this math, which is like, oh, come on. Couldn't you have just showed that? Wasn't there anyone at that print shop who knew math? Who could say, excuse me, this thing you're doing with the 15%, you can't do that.
Yeah. I don't think people just want to sell books.
Well, there's some of that.
Yeah.
And Fox was groundbreaking. He put this stuff together, and the casualty numbers are most historians accept casualty numbers as being very good. The returns on dead and wounded are good. One of the weaknesses is there's guys who die of their wounds that never get recorded as
dead.
MWA, mortally wounded. That's a category that doesn't exist. You're either dead or you're wounded. Mm-hmm. You died 2 months later. What do we call you? So but generally, with that exception, the loss records are good. It's the strength records that screw everything up.
Right.
Well, how big was the regiment that had these losses? We know that the 24th Michigan ends up on Culp's Hill with 95 men.
99,
or 99, but they don't know. But and they say, know. but the main number was 496 when they went into action. Yeah, go to Michigan and other records, and all of a sudden it's 500, 600, or 250.
Yeah.
This is a famous regiment.
Yeah.
And the point then is, boys and girls, easy with the numbers.
Well, and I also think that when you're getting bogged down in numbers, you're missing the entire point of studying this stuff.
Except thanks to Fox a little bit, although he didn't do it in his book. He didn't do it in the text, but we equate losses with courage, losses with valor.
Hard fighting.
Oh, they were hard fighting. Look at that, 75th Pennsylvania. Look how they fought as that ferry flipped over and they all drowned.
Yeah.
But they fought to swim. You know, I mean, so, you know, the Butcher's Bill, you know, we one of our regiments here, the 5th New Hampshire, ended up the highest number of KIA of the war. You know? What does that tell you? Brave soldiers? Bad doctors.
It tells me
wounded guys who die. I mean,
it tells me a lot of things. I mean, I don't know.
A lot and nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It tells me a lot, and it
doesn't help us where we started to understand those guys on that line. If it's 262, if it's 289, if it's 240, looking down that slope. And the colonel is standing there with a look on his face that had to be like, these are his children. Right. You know, he had a company of militia that now he's in charge of the whole regiment, and he's had a look on his face. We're going.
Oh, it's got to be devastating.
He may not even have uttered any words. He may have just turned and waved his sword, and they went with him.
That feeling, I don't even understand what that could be.
Yeah,
that feeling.
Yeah,
as the colonel, when you look at that.
And so how do we translate?
You don't.
That to visitors on the field. You take him there and you let him look at it and you hope something sits. And I do use the numbers, so you know.
Well, no, the numbers are
hypocritical.
Numbers are good to use, but like it's. I highly doubt that as these guys are listening to a bullet whiz past their ear, they're thinking of what's our strength here, and you know how many have we lost so far.
They're looking and they know.
Well, no, they know because they see a guy lose his head. I see how
many guys we got, and I see how many guys those are.
But what I'm saying is like they're living the story. That's their cousin who just got shot over here. That's their neighbor they grew up with who just got shot over there. I don't know if I
read the quote, but Patrick Henry says he thought he saw his brother get hit.
Yeah, I can't.
But we got to keep going.
Or what's the name of the father and son in Pickett's division?
Say, was it William?
Is it Spessard?
Yeah, I think so. God, I wish I knew.
I think he was like a sergeant.
Call up Hessler. See where
is Hessler? Where's Hessler when you need him?
Yeah.
I think it's Spessard.
Look, it's my son. You know, look what they did to my boy. Look what they did to my boy.
Can you
and then
imagine?
He gets up and keeps leading.
And he has to keep going.
Well, he doesn't have to, but he does.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Yes,
those guys are dropping like flies on that attack.
I know. I would have gone to bed.
Yeah. You look hurt. Let me help you back. I'm not hurt that bad. No, I insist. I'll help you back. Come on, Bill and Steve. Help this guy back. Lieutenant, I am not hurt that. Oh, you're bleeding. We've got to bring you back to the hospital. Let's go. We got to carry him back. We'd love to make this charge. We really would, but we feel needed, duty bound to carry you back to the hospital.
Right.
That finger could get infected. That fingernail, that looks like it hurts.
Eric W. with a $10 super chat says, great show as always. Can we get a Dan Butterfield for the, sorry, Ralph, beaver removal? Yes, we can.
Dan Butterfield.
And by the way, I would say, well done, National Park Service. But it's actually from Washington.
They're not removing the beavers. They're lowering the water.
Well, I'm sorry. I think for the beavers and for you guys, it's almost over. And I think history has won yet again.
You know?
Yes.
They're removing the frat house, but the frat boys still have their Adirondack chairs, and they'll sit on them in the rain. You know, yes, the beavers are clever critters.
Yeah,
They're farmers. Beavers are farmers.
Yeah.
They create a water habitat that grows the plants that they eat.
That's wonderful.
It is very wonderful. And plus they were wiped out in the 1860s, so they deserve to come.
They were wiped out.
They were wiped out by trappers. Hardly there. You know, I love that.
And they make great hats, by the way.
People put, like Lincoln. They put it on their post. The beavers weren't here during the battle. Yeah, it wasn't their fault.
The world needs everybody.
You know.
Look.
Amen.
The birders are going to be unhappy.
The who?
The birders.
The birders.
Bird watchers.
Oh, let me tell you something. Birders. There's a place called Michaud State Forest.
Yeah.
It's got a beautiful reservoir up there. It's gorgeous.
Catoctin.
Whenever I want to see nature, I go into nature.
Okay. Well,
I don't go to a battlefield.
Well, you don't know nothing about no birds then, do you?
No,
you don't
we
see
actually
birds in a reservoir.
We have a bird book
Did you
in
ever
our
look
house.
Did you look into it?
Well, you know where we live. We're on top of a mountain, right? So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
all kinds of birds outside our window.
Yeah.
And we, we would identify their chirps. I like birds.
A natural
I like birds.
floodplain wetland
Yeah. Well,
drew species that they haven't seen in Gettysburg in 30 years.
well, I really couldn't care less.
Well, but but you're not, which is why I began the argument. You're not a birder.
I'm not. I'm not.
And I'll bring Dave Weaver in.
You know where I am
who
a
is
birder?
an avid birder and also has many weapons.
I am a I am a birder everywhere but the 6,000 acres that is Gettysburg National Military Park.
Don't work that way.
Okay, it's working that way right now, Ralph. Team Mozart is winning.
Well, I'm
No antifreeze involved.
No shenanigans or chicanery.
There's been just a lot of exaggeration.
I'm
it's
telling you.
damaging and it's destroying.
Yeah.
And it's this, first of all.
Oh, my life.
Yeah, exactly. that the 40th Mozart Regiment was never in any jeopardy. It sits on a damn boulder.
Well, it was surrounded at one time. We just couldn't access
But it
it.
sits
That's
on
all.
a boulder and it's in dry land now. And I think people appreciate the 40th New York Amphibious Assault Regiment. I think
How about that?
it's a nice looking. It looks like he's in like a boat of some
It
kind
does.
heading
It does.
forward. I think
Well,
it's
and
perfectly
if you get
because the soldiers who dedicated that monument knew they were in a wetland. And they said, someday this is going to fill up with water.
This is a story.
Mike, did you bring your beavers? I just brought my hat, so. And, okay, well, let's.
Listen.
Wetlands fill up with water, and you know what? And then they drain.
Contrary to popular belief, it was not a swamp during the battle. It was not a marsh. It
There's
was
quite a few soldiers who describe it as a morass.
And some called it a swamp. Some called it a what was the other thing I just said? Marsh, right? Yeah. But all it was a cow pasture, and as we know, Ralph, from a couple of years ago, the Culp Farm. They recently fixed this, but the Culp Farm, if you remember, when you go on East Confederate Avenue, you look off to the left. Culp Farm was just a mud pit, but there's a creek that runs through there. Yeah. Why was it a mud pit? Because there were cattle in that field, and that's what they do. They hang up by the water, and it all just turns to mud. They churn everything up, turns to mud. That is not a swamp. That is not marshland. Yeah. That is misdirection. That is misleading. That is a lie when the park says that.
Give you science to go along with your math, because in our land acquisition programs, we actually had to learn the science of wetlands.
Right.
A wetland is an area that, drum roll please, is wet. Yeah. And sometimes it has perfectly dry surface and the water's 2 feet under.
Sure.
Sometimes it has a creek. Sometimes it has a marsh. Yep. Sometimes it's a damn lake and you can go fishing and kayak.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Right. And so, but it's still a wetland.
I'm looking at the...
It's been a wetland for hundreds of years, and sometimes it's got water, and sometimes it's got beavers, and sometimes it's got great blue heron. But what it never has is visitors marching across it, pretending to be the Pennsylvania Reserves, because you'll lose your shoes in there.
Yes,
I don't care how dry it seems, it is a wet area. And so it had a lake in it. It didn't break anything.
No, and listen.
And it brought in birds that got Carol Reardon and the other bird watchers very excited.
I know, and I'm sorry they're going to have to go out to the mountains now. But
those
look,
birds are not in the mountains.
Oh,
Matt.
they're everywhere.
Wetland birds.
I've seen herons up there. Are you kidding me?
Well, okay, herons are on golf courses, but let's move on to
squirt a little
the
water
tricolor
down.
heron and the least bittern, okay? The birds that haven't been seen in 30. Yeah, I know what you mean. The pterodactyl bird, I've seen one sitting on top of the visitor
Those
center.
are great.
I know. They're so cool.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah.
No, listen, Ralph, I really, at this point, I find it relaxing to go down there and sit on the boulder and watch the birds.
Well, don't go down there tomorrow.
Oh, I'm going tomorrow because we got to get video because Mikey Beaver is going to do the Crying Indian. We're going to do a Crying Indian shot where
It's going to be on fire tomorrow.
I know. That's why it's going to be really good.
That'd be good television.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you might see me out there.
Yeah,
I'll keep
Derek.
an eye out.
Steven.
They all left already. They when we started talking math, they started talking out the door.
I know. Listen, speaking out the door, let's go take a break. We'll come back and we'll get your questions. 717-420-1978 is the number if you want to call in. Otherwise, we're going to get the questions that our patrons submitted here at patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg. And of course, super chats of $10 or more. They rise above the din and we'll ask those questions for you. We'll be right back after these words.
How much time do
While
we have?
we pay the bills,
25 minutes.
we hope you'll
No, I'm just
call
kidding.
717-420-1978 and get in the queue to ask a Gettysburg Guide. We'll be right back.
Hey, buddy. What's got you so down?
Hey, Court. I'm looking for a gift, but I just don't know what to get my Gettys nerd friends and family.
Sounds like we need to have a talk. Come on. You love this place, don't you?
You bet I do. It's my favorite place in the world.
Well, you see, at Addressing Gettysburg, it's our mission to keep these stories alive.
How do we do that?
I'm glad you asked, sport. You see, Gettysburg is the gateway to the most brutal and crucial time in American history, so we interview experts, and our listeners learn with us.
That sounds amazing.
It is! Mike, are you f***ing serious?
What? It's for the commercial. What benefits do patrons get?
You mean besides up to 4 premium episodes per month and Matt being the bee's knees as host? Huh. How about early access to special episodes, behind-the-scenes insights, and discounts for ticketed events?
Whoa! None of the other history channels I follow do that for their listeners.
That's because Addressing Gettysburg doesn't take its listeners for granted and really cares about us learning American history.
You know, I should gift my Gettys nerd friends and family an Addressing Gettysburg Patreon membership.
You see, the answer was right under your nose the entire time.
Make Addressing Gettysburg's Patreon a gift for the Gettys nerd in your family this holiday season. Addressing Gettysburg wants you to learn about the Civil War with us, and we need your support. We'll run this ad until it gets annoying, and then we'll run it until you become a patron at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg or by scanning the QR code on your screen. Happy holidays.
The hell are we staring at?
No idea.
I lost my way. I lost my way. Ah.
You didn't get in the phone queue during the break? Come on. What are you, chicken? 717-420-1978 is the number to prove me wrong. Super chats of $10 or more will be read on the air. Here's Matt.
Thank you, Court.
You're welcome.
You're so mean to the audience, calling them chicken. They love you. Why would you do that to them?
I love them.
Hey, Semper Fi is going to be there. Semper Fi says he hopes to see some of you there on Sunday. All right, here we go. Ralph, First Minnesota. We've got some questions here.
All right.
Chris Mowell, he starts us off. He says, can Ralph discuss the first Minnesota urn placed in the Gettysburg National Cemetery? Is it true that it was the first official monument or memorial placed by a unit at Gettysburg? Yes, we talked about that before. You want to go into that a little bit more at all?
No.
Let me ask you this, though, about the urn. This is what I've always wondered. Was there once a time where it was regularly filled with flowers or something?
They flower, yeah.
Do they still?
Yeah, they keep.
Oh, okay. In my mind's eye, it's either like a dead plant or no plant at all.
Well, sometimes, a potted plant is a pain in the neck.
Yeah,
it
sure.
needs a lot of watering
because
it doesn't have enough soil base.
Right.
So, yeah, but I've seen flowers and plants in there. Yeah.
So is there like an organization that...
It's called the National Park Service Maintenance Operation. Yeah, they take care of the cemetery.
Okay. So,
and I think they take care of the urn.
They do, like the flowers in the urn if they put some... Okay.
Now, some nonprofit group's going to call up screaming saying, oh, the First Minnesota Urn Society heard your podcast. We drive out from Minneapolis every year with a flat full of pansies. Yeah, geraniums, right. So,
well, if that's true, then we're sorry. We didn't know that.
I think maintenance does it.
Okay, Bob Passamenti, the man who sent us all that Dobbin House food a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. We are still eating that food.
Yes. My heart stopped and started back up.
From all the cholesterol.
From all the cholesterol.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
It was great.
This is an AI generation of Court. He's actually
he's not even real. That's why it looks different.
Yeah.
He died. Yeah.
He's been dead.
He died. Bob actually met Bob a couple of weeks after that.
Oh, really?
Yes. And he was very nice. We sat here. He sat right where Ralph is now. And he was a great guy to talk to. I had a nice time. Bob says, thank you again for your time. Oh, there you go. And for that of your guests today. I recently reached out to you, Matt, for doing, thank you, for doing what you do and for giving enthusiasts such as myself a place to find solace, humor, and camaraderie while enjoying a wonderful education on the subject of Gettysburg. I have two-part questions. 1A.
2 questions, and each is in 2 parts.
Correct. There is an A and there is a B.
It's 4.
Tad, wake up.
It's like 4.
There is an A and there is a B.
Four.
Thank you.
4 questions. Okay.
Hey, other people were doing stuff.
1A. Where exactly were the reinforcements General Hancock was waiting for?
The other side of the ridge, probably pretty far down, maybe in bivouac, half of them. It's essentially Doubleday's First Corps.
Okay.
Which is just basically in the in Pickett's charge, they were in a reserve position. On July 2nd, they were in a let's make popcorn and coffee position.
Right.
Right. So
yeah, they had a rough day the day before.
Yeah.
1B, given this, did the 1st Minnesota sacrifice, in fact, actually by the specific time that Hancock felt he needed for said reinforcements? I think we...
Well, did they by the time became a non-question because the attack stopped?
Right.
So if there was a gap behind them or not, it no longer matter because they didn't get past the thicket.
Yeah,
they didn't get past the Plum Run thicket.
Did any of the First Corps arrive to assist, or was it over by then?
It's over.
So they called them off.
I don't think they have arrived in the gap. You know, there's a lot of dead bodies they can help carry up and wounded guys that need a hand. It is getting dark. Remember, it's dark.
That's true, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you also, especially in an attack like this, you're not going to attack in the dark. This is what confuses me about Rand's Wright's attack, is time of day. There's one prominent book by a good friend who has Ambrose Wright's Georgians going all the way over the wall and all the way down to
Hanover,
Meade's headquarters. Yeah, in the dark
right
at that point, because they moved after Willcox, and we hear from the guys in the 1st Minnesota, it's dark. The stars come out.
Huh.
Well, what's Wright doing? You know.
Well, was it after or was it simultaneous?
Oh, it was in Chechelon, which means after.
In Chechelon?
Chechelon is I don't know what that word means. It's Chechelon.
In Chechelon by Mazatlan.
In Echelon.
Okay.
Yes.
2A. Had Hancock been shot in the groin immediately prior to ordering the charge, would his voice have been too high-pitched to be heard amidst the squall of battle and thus lead to a break in the Union line? I would say the high-pitched voice would actually help him be heard over the din of battle. 2B, given this, is it thus safe to conclude that Hancock's tremendous balls in either case saved the Union line at this point in time? Big balls.
Our old friend.
They really love Hancock, don't they? He's got
Hancock
got big balls. Yeah, Hancock. They just go for Hancock.
Handball.
And you know, if they read some of what Hancock said about Grant, when Grant became president, I think the Hancock fan club would get a little thinner.
Yeah. Seems a little full of himself.
He's now, and groin doesn't mean right in the nuts.
No.
Right.
You know.
Right. Right. It wasn't actually in the
Yeah, it was more in the inner thigh.
Yeah.
Because they eventually got the stuff out of the wound by having him straddle an imaginary saddle in a medical clinic to recreate the angle of
how
his
he was
leg
sitting
when it went in.
Right. Because it didn't make sense. Laying down, the wound didn't make sense to them.
Yeah.
And then they're like, why don't we sit him in a saddle?
So that's another thing is like, take it easy. And just as I criticize Hancock, take it easy on him because he's awake.
Yeah.
He's sitting up. He's not anesthetized or the whole thing ain't working. They're going in there with probing needles. Yeah. You know, all you need is all you need is a visit to the Museum of Civil War Medicine in Frederick to walk out the door, go home and throw all your Civil War books into the dumpster and says, I think World War I's sounding interesting, you know, because it's just, oh my God.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. So
Richard Grabko says, my question is, how big a factor was Willard's charge in stopping Willcox, as it's in record that he was attacking Barksdale and perhaps the 111th, he says Pennsylvania, but I think he means New York. I know he means that, did engage Willcox. Any clarity would be appreciated. So we kind of clarified that earlier.
111th fired more bullets at Alabama than they fired at Mississippi. because their own boys are in front of them. They're in the way.
Yeah. And now, the reference to Mississippi is tomorrow, the 3rd.
Barksdale's
Mississippi.
Attack.
Right.
The two New York regiments are hitting Barksdale's brigade, what's left of it.
Right, because
the 111th is behind them, and they go onto a right angle and open fire on Willcox. If they're opening fire on Barksdale, their guys are in the way.
Yeah.
Now, it's not a bad point when we answer questions like this, that when you go on a tour with a guide or a ranger, or you look at a book, or you look at a map in a book, that we create an artificial sense of order that is the first thing that's gone on a battlefield. So you got a brigade charging down the hill, and their companies and regiments are commingled. Officers are giving people orders that are not under their command. It's getting dark. It's all smoky. The smoke, I think we had a quote to that the smoke saved men's lives in the Minnesota attack. Had my men been all out in the open without the smoke, none of us would have survived. And I think Colville said that. So, you look on a map and you see lines that show, well, here's the 125th, here's the 111th. Yeah, it gets a little artificial.
Yeah. And I was confused because I was thinking of the 11th Mississippi, but they weren't against the 111th New York. They were a little further south of them on the 3rd. So that's what I was thinking. Forgive me, all the perfect people out there. Forgive me, please.
Well, it does go to a point, just like I tried to make with the numbers, artificial sense of organization. Yeah. The books do it. The guides do it. Everyone does it because we want something to make sense. But basically, once an attack gets underway, it's 600, 700 men, and they're running into each other and in groups, and they're giving each other orders. And there's one famous quote where it says, "The men don't need a commander; they will advance on their own hook." There's a lot of that.
All right,
but 111th New York is hitting Willcox.
Okay,
and it is a factor in keeping the 1st Minnesota from being completely wiped out.
Dr. Craig Miller, he says, when I recorded with Matt yesterday, we discussed Albert Sieber. All right, look, folks, get ready with your dialing. Get ready with your dialing. Here we go. We mentioned Albert Sieber of the 1st Minnesota, who was hit in the leg and head during the regiment's charge, but lived to become a famous scout in the Old West, involved with the Apache Wars and the pursuit of Geronimo. Can you, ladies and gentlemen, name the actors who played Sieber in the movies/television? I'll give you a hint. There are 3 of them. 1, 2.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
3. I'm sorry, there's 4 of them.
Oh, my goodness.
There's 4 of them. If you get 3 out of 4.
Oh, come on. You got to do
If you get 2 out of 4, you will get a ticket.
Craig already told me, so I'm still not going to the totem pole because I'm bowing out.
Yeah, well, good. Because we don't want you there anyway.
Yeah, well,
you stink up the place.
Yeah, screw you. Man.
Yeah, screw you, man. Too.
Court, I want you there.
People I now have to call in.
That's nice.
Love you.
So now we're gonna call. Well, we're gonna go forward, and I'm gonna see if anybody has the nerve to call. I'm not.
If you know 3 of the names, you get an all expenses trip paid to Bermuda.
There you go. Now it's got to be a phone call. You got to call in, and if not, if you put it in the comment section again, it's got to be a super chat. You can't just throw it in there. All right, Ron Moore says, I wonder if Ralph thinks the charge and sacrifice of the 1st Minnesota was in fact a military emergency. Could it be possible the Confederate attack was running out of steam at that point and wouldn't have gone much further anyway?
Sure.
Yeah. So, sure. but what is Hancock? Hancock doesn't know that.
Yes, right.
Right? He sees
I see these guys coming, and I see a lot of our guys running.
Right.
Sure, it's possible that we don't have to do anything, and they're going to run out of gas once they get down to the Plum Run and the beavers start hacking at their ankles. that might put an end to that. Yes, of course, he doesn't know. We know.
Yeah. But he didn't. That's another thing. We like to have everything nice and neat. We kind of need it too, so we can understand it.
We also like to second-guess decisions.
Well, yeah, because we know a lot that they didn't know.
Yeah.
At the time, couldn't have known. I mean, if Willcox's brigade stopped in the middle of the field and laid down and took naps, then I think maybe Hancock would be like, you know what? I think those guys are done.
Personally, with what they've been through and getting across the Emmitsburg Road and through Carr's Brigade, which, by the way, they didn't run across that field. Humphreys had a fighting retreat. He stopped, turned, and fired. Stopped, turned, and fired.
Right.
Several regiments report how Humphreys is handling the withdrawal. Humphreys is a professional. And then they get across the ground and they say, oh, my God, is that another battery of 6 Napoleons? Oh, screw that.
Yeah.
You know, they're coming under 6 Napoleons and they're going closer into canister range.
Yeah.
And those 6 guns, which are covering a front of at least 70 or 80 yards, all opening up with canister and solids, that might have been enough to stop them.
Right. There's a lot working against Willcox, is what I think what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Van Cornish III says, what was the 1st Minnesota's reaction to Dan Sickles' 3rd Corps movement to the Peach Orchard? They must have had a good vantage point from their position on Cemetery Ridge. That's what he says.
So what happened to Coville after the war, you ask? I'll be happy to answer. Okay, I'm trying to pull one of those George Washington things. It's all happening before they get there. They're there seeing the chaos of the fighting, ranging from the Wheatfield Road across the Emmitsburg Road all the way to the Klingel and Kadori farm. They are seeing a landscape of fire, and I don't know if they've been briefed that Sickles did something wrong or whatever. They're just going up there and they're seeing what's going on.
Right.
Nobody's communicating with the common soldier. That hasn't changed. They're not communicating with the ordinary soldier very much about what's going on. These officers aren't even communicating with each other about what's going on.
Right.
Never mind have time to inform, William Loughran.
Yeah.
Okay, now see what's happening here. The 3rd Corps moved up.
Yeah, make sure you remember that.
Now you can see their regiments are falling back because they haven't. Right. Nobody's doing that.
Put that in your letters home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Ken Miller, he's got a couple of questions here. He goes, how did the 1st Minnesota's earlier experiences at places like Bull Run and Antietam shape them going into the summer of 63?
Fighters.
Made them
I don't know how else to say it. You see that with the regiments like the 5th New York, the Zouaves, and you see that with the Iron Brigade. How do you make fighters? You put them into battle, and the guys that come out alive are stronger. I've been under fire. I've been the baptism of fire. They are trained and they are drilled. You don't want to make too light of it. They are receive drill training because the men move as a unit. And the point behind drill is the same thing that hundreds of thousands of children are learning in Taekwondo class. You repeatedly do the front block every day. Every time you come to class, you do 30 front blocks. And then when somebody actually tries to punch you, you do it automatically because you've been doing it every class for years and years to push to the side. And now some guy tries to punch you and you push to the side without thinking of it.
Right, reflexively.
And so you turn your company to the left. You march by reverse to change front. They're doing this automatically because they have trained this over and over again ad nauseum, ready to kill the officer who keeps making them do it. And in battle, they don't have to think about it. It's automatic. They get an order and they know what it means, and they execute this.
No way to control it. It's totally automatic.
It's got to be automatic because if you have to think,
Oh, yeah, no.
To quote that famous pilot Maverick in Top Gun 2, you think, you're dead.
That's right. That's true. Yeah, that's it. You hesitated. You blinked.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about Marshal Sherman and the role he played in the regiment?
Captured the flag. He's one of the guys who returned. He re-enlisted, fought another Minnesota regiment and lost a leg. So it teaches him. He should have, settled for his Medal of Honor and gone home.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I shouldn't say that.
No, that's terrible.
But Marshal Sherman will capture the flag of the 28th Virginia. And those are crucial. The great book on the topic is George Stewart, Pickett's Charge, or Microhistory.
Yeah.
Because he researched in depth who grabbed what flag. And that helps you sort out who's where. Judging from that they're coming in on the right of the 19th Massachusetts, the 1st Minnesota, which is the size of a company, coming in on the left of the 19th Massachusetts, the 28th Virginia's got to be there somewhere.
Right.
Because they didn't get that far. The 2 officers are killed, and Sherman grabs up the flag of the 28th. What does that tell you? The 28th's over there somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the flank of Armistead's brigade. And that helps us put Armistead's brigade on the field, that sort of thing. You know?
Yeah, the George Stewart book is probably my favorite.
It's got an amazing map in it where it shows how all the flags were caught.
And all the cannons and what they were aiming at.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite Pickett's Charge book. I mean, of course, after Jim
I always
Hassler
recommend
and Wayne Motz's.
I recommend
that was Ralph Siegel. That was Ralph Siegel.
I recommend
not me.
I recommend well, any book written by a guide is written to make things clear. So you can't beat any of them, because the guides have heard the questions, and the guides have labored for years, if not decades, to learn how to tell. And so that works in a book. Stewart is Coddington. When people ask me, give me a book that I can read, Stewart's a magnificent writer. The thing reads like a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I just scarfed up a copy of Stewart for these folks that are coming to visit me from Salt Lake City. I said, this is your book. You start with this.
Yep.
And Bruce Catton. That's what you start with.
I think I have a copy of it out there, and I have 3 more at home. And I do this with Son of the Morning Star. Every time I find it used somewhere, I get, if there's there's always like 3 or 4 Son of the Morning Stars. So I always buy them out because they're like $5 a piece or whatever. And I hold on to them. And when we get talking about Custer and the Little Bighorn, I'm like, hold on, I got something for you. And I force people to take it and read it, and they can have it.
It's because
nothing beats a good book.
He picks the $5 Son of the Morning Star copies out of the book sale where I work.
That's right.
Often.
That's
and
right.
One time he was reading one, and I went up behind him, and I reached over and I spiked it right out of his hand.
He really did. It took me back to middle school. Okay. What became of the regiment after Gettysburg? How did they rebuild, and where did they serve next? Yeah, this is a good question.
They were in for another killing at Mine Run.
How many? Wait.
They were on the line at Mine Run in November.
As 100 men?
No, they. Yeah, I guess I don't know what they.
I mean,
I don't know how big they were.
Did they replenish their ranks at all?
The Union didn't really do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many men, but they
Minnesota didn't send them anywhere.
They were in the front line to make that attack that Meade had ordered, and Warren called it off because he saw that Lee, who they thought they had surprised him on the flank, was reinforcing his flank, and the whole attack was called off.
Huh.
And the men from Minnesota write about it like, this is it. I mean, I don't know how I got through Gettysburg standing up, but this is going to be finished. I'm going to be done here.
Yeah.
You have wounded men returning to the ranks as well.
Sure, okay. So it's... you're getting some guys back, but still, I mean, you're not.
No. It's curious now. I want to look it up. What was their order of battle? What was their regimental size of Mine Run?
Isn't that funny that
that was kind of their swan song,
right? We always stop at Gettysburg, but a lot of these units had a life afterwards, right?
And their April expiration in '64, the 3 years were up.
Okay,
and everybody pushes. We got to re-enlist them. The second reenlistment was duration of the war, which, how long is that going to be? Mm-hmm. The guys of the 1st Minnesota looked at their record, looked at the wounds that they had on their bodies, looked at Adams, because Coville doesn't recover. He's actually in the Tilly Pierce house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the James Pierce house. He's recuperating, and we'll come back and visit and say thanks to them. He's paralyzed. He can't move.
Yeah, because he got it in the back, right?
Yeah,
the upper back.
But he recovers, but he's never able to walk properly. He walks with a cane for the rest of his life. I'm glad you asked about Coville, because, but he still publishes a newspaper, and he will become the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. So he manages with that big cane. In 1893, he founds a town in northern Minnesota called Durfee Creek.
Durfee.
And today you can't find it because it's been renamed Coville.
Wow.
Coville, Minnesota.
Coville, Minnesota. There you go.
In
it's
June,
about to be renamed.
The regiment is very proud. And they have annual reunions in Minnesota, in Minneapolis.
Mickersona.
Annual reunions at the best hotel, and all the veterans come. And in 1905, at the age of 75 years old, his disability is getting even worse, but he travels to Minneapolis for the big reunion. Saturday's going to be the big reunion, get-together banquet, and Friday night he dies in the hotel.
Son of a...
And he's buried in Red Wing. It would be cool if they buried him in Coville, but Red Wing was his home base, and so he's buried in Red Wing. And it takes, 23 years, but in 1928, they dedicate a monument to William Coville at his gravesite in Red Wing. Okay? And the monument dedication is attended by President Calvin Coolidge and 20,000 people.
Wow.
So, yeah, a big legacy, big memory for Minnesota. Tim is entirely right, which is hard to say, that, up until Shara, and even later, because even though Shara's novel was awarded the Pulitzer Prize, it was a dead seller. It just didn't sell books.
Yes, right.
It wasn't until Gettysburg came out that there was an enormous interest in the novel.
Well, Ken Burns first.
And Shara's gone by then.
Yeah,
but Ken Burns didn't make Shara popular.
No.
Gettysburg did.
But he featured Chamberlain, and that was the first.
That certainly elevated the 20th Maine, which was
not like the movie did.
Right. It's the core of Shara's book. I don't know if 1990 did it for Shara's book sales. Jeff would be able to. You've had Jeff on the show.
Yeah,
Jeff would know.
He told me, and he said something I don't remember. But if you go back and listen to the Jeff Shara, it was one of the Jeff. We've had him on a couple times, so I don't remember which one he talked. Well, we talked about his dad. We did a whole episode on his dad.
Yeah.
And that was about 4 or 5 years ago.
So he probably would have said that.
He did. He tells the whole story there.
That didn't sell. It didn't sell till I thought it was the movie.
No, so the killer, I'm sorry, Ken Burns,
right,
when talking about day 2 of Gettysburg, features Chamberlain.
Yes.
In an unlikely textbook maneuver, right?
Yes.
And that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that is the first time where they say that there was like a wave of interest in Chamberlain. Then the movie comes out,
right.
which Maxwell
had
been
later.
Right, and Maxwell had been fishing that, shopping that all over the place for 12 years.
Yeah,
right. That comes out, and now all of a sudden,
I didn't know he was shopping it for 12 years.
Oh yeah,
I knew originally it was supposed to be a TV movie.
No, originally
Turner wanted to put it on his channel as a 2 or 3 night.
They did, but then they also said, why don't we put it in the theaters too? That's why the beards suck, is because originally it was supposed to be just television. They're like, let's put it in the...
What, the TV's too small, you can't see the beard?
Basically, no, there's a difference between film and television beards and wigs.
Evidently.
Anyway, the point is, it was Chamberlain and the 20th Maine became huge from the movie. Everybody wants to come here and see Little Round Top and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
I do believe that, this could be easily Googled in front, right there in that laptop you have in front of you there, Cord, if you don't mind. When did the Killer Angels win the Pulitzer? Because it won the
74.
Pulitzer, right? Oh, it was 74.
Yeah.
So, okay, never mind.
Or maybe 75, but for the year it's published, the Pulitzer's awarded the next year.
And that Pulitzer didn't help it. That was the sad thing about Michael Shara's story.
Do what writers are and historians are impressed, journalists are impressed by Pulitzers. The general public,
Yeah, but sometimes you hear that
it can make a bestseller.
Yeah.
David Blight's Frederick Douglass book, the sales tripled when he received the Pulitzer.
Sure. We very
but it's
proudly.
Frederick Douglass, it's
well, of course, you're the subject.
Not an obscure guy.
Yeah, and I think Jeff was saying that when the book came out and it won the Pulitzer, the public still didn't care because Vietnam was fresh in their minds and they didn't want to hear about war.
In their minds, Vietnam's still happening,
and they don't want to. They don't want to hear or read a book about colonels and generals making decisions that kill the average man.
Just this weekend, I had an opportunity to talk with a couple of people, including Jared Frederick, who has his own little podcast about movies and history. And something that flummoxes me is why the Apple
doesn't fall
Apple
far from the tree.
miniseries Masters of the Air
hasn't,
which I felt was every bit as top quality as Band of Brothers, didn't even get nominated for Emmys, was completely overlooked for everything. I mean, the Band of Brothers is legendary and incomparable, but Masters of the Air was right there, a different sort of two main character structure than an ensemble. But
you know what it was for me?
And it's the time. It's the context. Today, there's less than back then, 9/11. Militarization, a great appeal for the greatest generation.
Yeah, and they were still alive. My grandfather was still around.
And today, or last year, or whatever it was when it came out, it was not, didn't get the ratings, didn't have the...
No,
we don't want World War II stuff.
No, I don't know if it's even that, because there's a new generation that's becoming interested in World War II, and they never met a World War II veteran because they're all young and they're all dead. But, well, they're not all dead, but mostly.
Yeah, they're in hundreds, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think for me what it was, I had the same problem with the Pacific. I just didn't care about the characters.
Yeah.
And also with the Pacific, too much of the home front. I know that's the story, but what I loved about Band of Brothers was there was I think besides when they were in boot camp, there's one scene when they're not in a combat zone, and that's when Winters goes to Paris.
Yeah.
Right? But there's no love story, there's no home front, anything. That bores me, that takes me out of it. And that's why Band of Brothers is so good. Masters of the Air, they start off and the guys are already really good pilots, and he's got the hot girl, right? And that's in the very beginning. The very beginning of Band of Brothers, we go through boot camp with these guys. Yeah. We see them vomit spaghetti going up Mount Curry.
It's a different through line.
Yeah. Well, you get to know the character. You care. You give a shit.
I think the problem with Pacific was that in Band of Brothers, the characters were all on the same track.
Mm-hmm.
They're different characters, but they're in the same unit. They're all together. And they're going in the same direction and having the same story. The Pacific was three guys with completely different stories.
Yeah.
So from one to the next, all of a sudden you're in Peleliu, all of a sudden you're in
exactly.
All of a sudden,
yeah.
And
the combat was great.
I love the Pacific because in New Jersey, John Basilone is a huge hero. There's still a parade every year.
More than Bruce Springsteen.
For John Basilone.
Yeah, that's
okay. And so that was big.
That'll wake you up.
He earned it.
But
all right, I got one more question, and then by God, it's 3 hours and 20 minutes we're going here.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Did my watch break? My watch is broken.
Yeah, well,
you broke my watch.
You broke my watch.
You broke my watch, and now it's gone.
You started.
Brian Durenick says, why was the 1st Minnesota Regiment the only one from Minnesota assigned to the Army of the Potomac, and why were they not assigned to the Western Army? We already know why they were the first.
In Washington.
It was that simple.
The first 75,000 guys all went to Washington.
Oh, that's right.
Because Washington, remember, Maryland was on the fence about secession.
Right.
So this could have gotten very bad.
Yep.
The Washington, D.C. could have been surrounded by Confederate states. Of course, Virginia didn't secede right away either. But you get my point.
Yeah.
The first soldiers all rushed for Washington. The Western campaigns developed later, and of course, the rest of the Minnesotans. Remember, there was 11 regiments. All 10 of them were in the Western theater.
The 4 actors who played Al Sieber in movies and television. It looks like you know what? It looks like nobody called. Nobody wants to come to the show. You know what? That's fine. We don't want you anyway. Okay. In fact,
no food for you.
No food for you. No fun for you. No camaraderie for you.
No soup.
All of you who didn't call. All right, here's the answer. John McIntyre in the film Apache, 1954.
I have a clue what that is.
Richard Widmark, you know him, in the TV series Mr. Horn.
I never
1979.
Okay. 79?
Yeah, here's our boy, the late great Bobby D. Robert Duvall in the movie Geronimo, an American Legend.
And he's good in it.
He's great in it.
Yeah.
Of course he's good in it. It's Robert Duvall.
So is Gene Hackman.
That movie was great. Yeah. And that scene where Jason Patrick goes up against the lone Apache and he pulls his horse down, and the way he gets on that when he's done, and he just kicks the horse, stands over him, kicks the horse, and the horse gets up, and he perfectly won. Have you ever seen this movie? Oh my God,
very good.
It's so
very
good. All right, and then of course Matt Damon is in it as well, and that kind of ruins it. But Wes Studi is good.
Matt Damon. What's wrong with Matt Damon?
Matt Damon. I don't know. It's from Team America World Police. Nothing's wrong with Matt Damon. He's a fine man.
But we just ran out of time for him.
Yes. And then Charlton Heston played him, a character based on him in Arrowhead, 1953.
I'm going to rush back to see that now.
He used to babysit Bo Brinkman's kid. Chuck Heston and his wife. Bo lived in their neighborhood.
Sounds risky. You drop your kid off at Chuck Heston's
Want to
house.
see a musket? Hey, kid.
Hey, kid. You want to see my gun collection?
Look at this pirate pistol I have.
Here, you can handle this one. Here's your own NRA card.
Yes. You ever see what a 357 Magnum could do?
And then he goes into the backyard with a broom handle and says, "Watch what I can do to the pool."
Because he played Moses. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to go. We are tired.
You got to get him on.
We will.
You folks got to look up this book.
Give his
it's
email.
Not a reading book.
Give Dave his email address.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, James Christian.
Don't you get tired, Ralph?
He's a retired doctor. What is he?
Me and Tad have been here all day. Are you slap happy back there, Tad?
Oh, I was there when we hit an hour.
I know. Somebody said you had
hour 2.
Somebody said you have the 1,000-yard stare.
Well, because you and Ralph kept going on about the fucking beaver for like the millionth time, and I was just like, oh my god,
I haven't been on that often. Beaver news deserves publicity.
No, Alan, I don't want a love story in Band of Brothers. That's my point. I don't want love stories mixed in with my war. You're taking me out of the war. I don't care.
Matt just wants more gayness in the things he watches.
Well, there was that
Mortal Kombat is gay? Okay.
There was that sex scene where you got to see Tom Hardy's butt.
Oh.
In Band of Brothers.
That's right.
Your favorite.
Right. Yeah, when they're looting.
Yeah, when you look at the cast of Band of Brothers, how many big actors we have today that came out of out of that,
Yeah, no.
And how many butts? That's the only butt, I think. I think the only butt we got to see was Tom Hardy.
The fact you guys know that is tells a lot.
I've seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was Tom Hardy.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to look for a second. You say,
Mr. Hardy.
You do that. You say, oh my God, that's Tom.
Michael
oh my God, that's Michael Fassbender.
Right,
oh my
right.
God, that's James McAvoy. Oh my God, that's
That's right. They're all in this movie. If Matthew Leach is watching, because I know you love the show, Matthew, if you do talk to Tom Hardy, tell him he's got a wonderful ass.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Listen, we've got to go, ladies and gentlemen, because it is exhausting.
When we're getting to Tom Hardy's ass.
When we start talking, when we start talking about Tom Hardy's supple butt, we just need to leave. I think is what we need to do.
No, we should have opened it.
Well, we had our own episode of Real History.
Yes.
We moved Hollywood history.
There you go. All right, that's it for us. I don't know what the next Ask a Guide is, but it's in 2 weeks. We hope to see you then. And in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to see you on Sunday, we can't wait to see you, and we hope you enjoy it. God only knows. We're going to dress rehearsal tomorrow. It's the only rehearsal.
And we'll be
what time is it?
It's at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm going to be there at 5.
If I can pitch, July 7, we'll be doing the first Minnesota Battle Walk.
Oh, will you?
Sponsored by the Association of Battlefield Guides.
Well, that's wonderful.
3-hour battle walk where we'll walk the ground and maybe find a bone or a bloodstain.
You know, I love to promote guiding and the ALBG, and you might notice in our list of sponsors, you're not one of them.
We can make it a get out of the car. We can put them together.
No need to do that. Is it on the third Saturday of the month?
It's a Tuesday. They're all Tuesdays, battle walks.
Can't do that. Sorry. Get out of the car. It's very strict rules, and it's Lewis Trot.
Well, Lewis can do the Saturday, and I'll do the good one on Tuesday.
All right. That sounds good. That's it for us here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Tad. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everybody. Roger, I think he left, right?
Everyone else.
Everybody else left. All right. Stuart or Stanley or whatever his name is. All right. There's Courtney. Thank you very much. All of you watching at home and everything. And, of course, for all the super chats and everything. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide is produced by Matt Callery, Mikey B. Bariski, and Tad Scase. Hosted by Matt Callery, featuring Mikey B. and Court Nicker. Engineered by Tad Scase. Guests booked by Dave Bussiere of TR Historical. Broadcasting from and recorded at the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios. Thanks for listening. Addressing Gettysburg, LLC, all rights reserved.